Actually 6 o'clock. So we're going to open this special meeting for the Board of Trustees for May 9th, 2023. I guess we'll have to do roll call.
Ms. Orch?
Here.
Mr. Unger?
Here.
Mr. Wallet?
Here.
All right, board. So to kick the meeting off tonight, Chief Cordy and I wanted to walk you through a presentation just kind of highlighting where we are in the police department from both a short and long-term perspective. And then after that, we'll wrap things up and turn it over to you all for discussion. And with that, I'll dive right in. And I think Ed's going to start us off by telling us a little bit about the history of our department, where it started, and where we are today.
Jumping right into the thickest part of this entire conversation here, and I could probably stand up here for the next 3 hours and have this conversation right here alone, but to keep this as brief and so we have plenty of time for this conversation, let's talk about our police department as a whole. Effectively, Colerain Police Department became a standalone police department May 1st, 2012. When I say standalone, I mean we were not the primary reporting agency in Colerain Township. Hamilton County, prior to this, was completely they were the primary reporting agency. Every crime, everything had to go through Hamilton County in Colerain Township. Prior to disbandment, we were a supplemental police force to assist Hamilton County handle all crimes, all investigations, all reporting. Once the police department came back, even when there's only 4 of them, they still supplemented Hamilton County. Due to budgetary issues, Hamilton County required additional funds from us. We did not have the funds to be able to step forward with that. And in 2012, their deputies went from 19 down to 6. So we were down to 6 total deputies in Colerain Township. So again, May 1st, 2012 was the very first time to say that we were our own police department. That means a lot to us. When I say that means a lot, that's not just the fact that we are able to be the standalone police department. We had a little bit of ownership that we could. We now are handling our own crimes, our own investigations. Absolutely everything when it comes to true law enforcement capabilities was upon us. But to be able to gain that was a lot of work. There was a lot of hard times and a lot of struggling to get to that point. We took pay freezes as an officer group and a sergeant collective bargaining unit for 4 years. Part of those pay freezes, or the reasons why we had those pay freezes, the reason why we were in the position we were in just a few months ago, because 4 years and no raises, that makes us non-competitive. 2014, we had to go forward with a levy because we realized fairly quickly we now have a lot of additional things that we had on our plate that we previously did not. Prior to 2014, we didn't even have our own property room on the grounds here. It was all handled at Hamilton County. Hamilton County they had all of the different property. You would go to Hamilton County District 1 to drop off property, to collect property before you go to court, everything about that. Obviously, we, as you guys know, we have brought around the impact team. We've brought on environmental crimes. Our impound lot was established after 2014, and the criminal investigative unit is probably the most important part to talk about. At the time when we took over as the primary, we had 3 investigators. We had 1 investigative sergeant and 2 true investigators. We now, if we include our Officer Berniker down at the airport for DEA, we now have 8 dedicated detectives and one supervisor. It's a big change. The type of crimes that we were investigating then compared to now, they're the same crimes. The same numbers are there. We needed the amount of folks to get into place to go there. And then in the beginning of 2012, we had 37 officers. We handled 35,000 calls for service. I will tell you, we got our butts kicked every single day.
I'm sure.
I was a supervisor at that time as an OIC, and even when in 2015 as a sergeant, there was 4 beats. I would log in every single day as the 2 beat, which is the western part of Colerain Township, and every day as a sergeant, I ran a beat. There was 3 additional officers with me. To say that we became a department that was do more with less is a complete understatement. It's not a sustainable model. So with that being said, we obviously needed to grow. We continue to grow and go from there. So as we would go to, and you start looking at the prior years, the run volume has never been our friend. We've maintained roughly 44,000 to 46,000 calls for service every year, year in, year out. We average between 120 and 126 calls per day. These type of calls could be things that we could handle either over the phone in 5 minutes, or it could be a 5 to 7 hour detail, handling some of the most horrendous crimes that you could possibly imagine. So to be able to say 120 calls per day is an easy thing, they're not. I've gone from call to call that were multiple hour calls, and I was on 2 calls, and it took an entire 12-hour day, to running 15 calls in that shift too. It's hard to be able to identify, but we are currently averaging just under, in 2022, we had 45,500 calls, and we averaged about 125 calls per day for that point. Crime stats is the next category here, as you will see. These are all 4. It's kind of hard to see with the numbers up here, but this is theft, burglary, auto theft, arson, robbery, aggravated assault, which is felonious assault in the state of Ohio, rape, and homicide. These are all type 1 crimes that are reported. These are the major crimes that everyone tends to talk about, with good reason. You'll see theft is the thing that absolutely crushed and killed us in burglary back in on the left chart. And on the right chart, you see quite a bit of robbery, felonious assault, and alarmingly quite a bit of rape. And I will tell you, don't be alarmed when you see that green that's on there, because as I've told a lot of you, rape is just a different charge. What I mean by that is, when you watch TV and you watch the soap operas or the TV shows that are on there, you see all these serial rapists and all these terrible things that they make it be. That's not the type of rape that's happening in Colerain Township, in the city of Cincinnati, or even probably the state of Ohio. That is a lot of, unfortunately, inside the home type of offenses. As you can see, robbery used to be a huge problem. On the right side, purple was a huge problem, and it's much less now than it ever used to be. So as we saw from 2015, 2016, crime was extremely high. We all know that's right in the heart of the heroin pandemic, when we were going through that and having numerous overdoses and quite a few problems. Crimes of deception drove that type of offense, so that's the reason why we were going through that. As that's kind of gone down a little bit, so is crime. Next one, please. Staffing. So we did a staffing study in 2020, which I'll get back to here in a second. But as I began this conversation, 2012 to 2023, you see a gradual increase in our staffing. This is simply because we are, once again, a standalone police department that are handling, we have 59,000 roughly residents. We are 42.9 square miles, and we average, again, 42 to 46,000 calls for service per year. We're actually understaffed. The staffing study will tell you that just to handle the calls for service numbers, using a 50% model, which is 50% of the time we are handling just the calls, the other 50% of the time it's reactionary policing, that we should have 38 patrol officers, which equate our department to be somewhere in between roughly 82 officers total. They also made a second recommendation of 67% model, which is 67% of the time we would have calls for service. I'm actually doing this backwards. 50% of the time that we should be 50 patrol officers, which is 105 officers in the department, and the 67% model would be 82 officers. So again, that's 50% of the time handling just the calls, the other 50% of the time allowing us to handle training, anything else that could possibly come up in proactive policing. We're nowhere near that. I understand that that's a far stretch for us to get to, but again, we've done some pretty fantastic things with the numbers that we do have, like environmental crimes, the CIU unit, canines, environmental, or QRT, so on and so forth. Jeff?
Yes, so you may be thinking, well, we're here to talk long-term financial forecast. So every year we build out a multi-year, 5-year forecast for each department that looks at all of our funds. As a brief reminder on how most of our funding is structured, it is one set dollar amount that we receive in perpetuity through property taxes. So that dollar value does not grow. It does not typically decline unless there are massive decreases in property values. And so when we set that levy in 2014, it was intended to serve for 5 years. We're now in 2023, and you may be questioning, well, how did we get through the extra 4 years? And we've done a few things to try to offset direct taxpayer dollars. So we've looked at things like putting TIFs in place and using funding streams that have come off of TIFs. So the Stone Creek TIFs expired in, I believe, 2017, 2018, and we were able to use several of those dollars to purchase capital for the police and fire departments. We've done a number of grants. So we've had grants related to the opioid epidemic. We've had grants from the state of Ohio for OVI arrests and OVI saturations. We've utilized them to offset some of our OPATA training. So that's the training that the state asks us to do on an annual basis. We've also worked and utilized some of our CARES and ARPA funds to offset costs in the police department. So these were the federal dollars that were given out in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. We've done a lot in terms of DEA funding. We mentioned Officer Berniker earlier, but he being stationed down at the airport, he's been able to just have an eye for folks that are usually involved in some sort of trafficking that they should not be involved in, and has been able to, through the DEA asset forfeiture process, generate quite a bit of revenue for the township. We've started new programs with the school district, so we currently have various SROs and school safety officers in the schools, which are fully funded by the school districts. That's another thing that we've done to offset some of these costs. And then finally, we've had contracts for towing, we've had contracts with Walmart, and we've had contracts with Northgate Mall. All of these have an administrative charge. It may not be a lot, but it does add up over time. So these are various steps that we've taken to kind of close that gap. But what you'll see in the chart, which is pretty evident, is that we are projecting to go negative in 2024. So what that tells us is that we need to explore what types of opportunities and alternatives there are out there to close that gap, either on the revenue side of the ledger or on the expense side of the ledger. And so I know sometimes people think about a cop and they just think about the person. But there's actually a lot of equipment that they wear too. And so we had somebody put together this infographic, and Ed, I didn't know if you wanted to walk us through a little bit some of the things on there.
Yeah, so this is my bread and butter. I spent a lot of time in purchasing, and this is the kind of stuff that I unfortunately know like the back of my hand. It's expensive. The equipment that our officers wear is absolutely expensive. In the last 2 years, the radio cost has gone up by $1,000. I just got a quote. That number is actually wrong. It's $52,087. So it's already gone up in the last month and a half since I've did this and we worked on this. The ballistic vest, that's very expensive. We do get a little bit of money back as long as we get the grants and get approved for that, which Nancy's pretty fantastic at getting that for us. The duty gear, this is the handcuffs, the mace, the pouches that's on there, all the different items that you see that's on the vest. The boots are expensive. As crazy as that is, to get the right pair of boots, a lot of cops, it's best for them to get Gore-Tex boots to keep their feet dry, and boots are expensive. Taser and body camera, this again is a number that's per year. So that's a contract, $26.70 is per year that it's through Taser and that time per officer. A 6 hour, that's a state bid number, uniform and badge. That type of item we can buy as well through calls and through competitive pricing. But again, it's expensive just for the cost of outfitting an officer by itself.
I have the POs right here, and it's showing to the public how much these actual costs are.
And that's just the items that we're talking about.
Right.
On that. We're not even talking about the cost of the vehicles, the canines, the mobile computers, the cameras, crime scene training, numerous other items as well. So when we started, is this me still? Yeah. So when we first started looking at things and we started to talk about a couple different things, I would tell you that probably the number one concern that I have for us as a police department is our space. We are woefully out of room. We continue to look at every single room and take every single inch and measure and tape measures and figuring out what can we possibly do to make more with less in our rooms. We're out of real estate. Besides going up and adding additional shelving into rooms, I don't know what to do with current what we have. Our current building is roughly 7,500 square feet. Our current staffing, if we count civilians, is 83 people inside of our building. If we look at just the officer count, that's 112 square feet per officer. If we look at the civilian count, that's 90 square feet per employee. Knowing and wondering if this is a reasonable number or not, I decided to start reaching out to a couple different neighboring police departments that recently built brand new buildings or rehabbed buildings, knowing that there's two different concepts, but the same basics are the same. We reached out to Monroe, Springdale,
Westchester.
Westchester, and Monroe, the 4 buildings. So we conducted this small study from the nearby local departments, Sharonville, not Springdale, the local departments that recently built, and we asked them what were they working towards, and they said they weren't working towards today's building, but they were working towards the future and hopeful growth. Hearing that in mind, we realized we have future growth concerns as well. So taking their square footage, taking their officer count, and doing some simple math in Excel, it comes down to 608 square feet per officer. So again, we feel it and we can see it when we compare ourselves to the other departments they're looking at new square footage and new building sizes.
And so we've got a few slides that show some areas of our police department, just to add some context to what we're talking about when we talk about whether it's security features that our department maybe doesn't have, or just size and space needs, so that both the public and the board can have an understanding of what some of those challenges are. And so we'll go through these pretty quick, but so this is an image right now of what our entry into the police department looks like. And as you can see on the right there, there's a photo of a resident that decided to just hang out right outside the doorway. I don't advise doing that, but they were certainly doing that day and just hanging out. I know Chief has mentioned to me at times there have been folks that have tried to hide behind police cruisers, hide behind personal vehicles. They've done things to damage personal vehicles of police officers. So these are some real concerns that we do have. This is what the entryway into the police department looks like. So I think some of the folks noticed that underneath that lip on that countertop right there, that there was some space. So they decided to fit some boxes there while they could. That doorway is in RCIC, what's the Regional Computer Information Center. They have some requirements around sectioning off different areas. So this is what the clerk's office looks like. If anybody wants to see that, they can easily walk into the PD lobby and just look in there, and they'll see that it's kind of tight. There are 3 to 4 clerks at different times of the day that might be working in that small space. This is what the command staff area kind of looks like. So hallway with a couple of offices. This is the briefing room. So you got one of our officers in there waving, but this is an area where, as the department does grow, or as it has grown, it gets tighter and tighter year over year. There isn't necessarily more room for additional desks or chairs to really be placed in there. Ed, would you say that's a full squad or a partial squad?
So this is a squad, and there's additional officers in there that's more than a full squad, because it looks like we have at least 2 people in that room that are in training.
Okay.
So in the FTO process.
This is our investigation area. So these are the 8 investigators that Ed was speaking with. Ironically enough, our armory is actually in this room at the very end of the hallway, and you actually have to lift up if one of the officers is sitting in his seat and move him in order to be able to access the armory. So we're trying to fit people in wherever we can. This used to be a training room. It's now basically used for overflow storage. You can see that there wasn't exactly a ton of space anyway to fit a lot of desks for training purposes.
Back one slide.
Yep.
The room to the left is actually our soft interview room. So this is the area that you take victims of crime that you don't want to take into the areas that you truly investigate the hardened criminals that are going through things. We have to walk them through all of our storage to get to it.
These are our locker rooms. I think, as an aside, Ed, are we almost out of space in our locker rooms?
We're out of space on both. We're out of capacity even for the restrooms. Both showers are completely, they do not drain properly.
This is our property room. They do a lot with a little. As a reminder, we are a young department. So, over time, this is going to get bigger and bigger, and there's going to be more and more evidence. There are a lot of cases that we're required to keep the evidence for in perpetuity. I think Ed always cites a case that Hamilton County had when they were still here that involved a couch that they actually have to store the couch for forever. So
I don't think that picture does our property room
You're right.
justice.
I was just
It
gonna
is
talk-
so jammed.
I'm going to talk on this one for a second
Yeah.
because this is incredibly important.
Yeah.
There's roughly 6,000 pieces of property in this room. It is an incredibly small space, and
It's-
the only reason why it's somewhat functional is the person that we have in there is very, she's meticulous.
You're
So she
looking at
does-
this room, is it like 12 by 12?
It's probably a little bit bigger than that, but it's
14 by-
12 by 16 maybe.
12 by 6,
So-
the out where the desk is. It's such a small area for such a
Yeah, so-
immense amount of.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So points of reference on the right side, that entire section on the right side is items that we can never get rid of. We must maintain those items forever. They're involved in homicides. So we have to keep each one of those items there. All those boxes on the left side and the top that look like pizza boxes, those are guns. And she does a fantastic job of turning over property twice a year where we go through a destruction list. Otherwise, I don't even know what this room would look like. That centerpiece there, you're wondering why is that in there? That's important because this room did not have proper ventilation.
Oh, boy.
We had to go through the wall and add external ventilation to this just so she could have some sort of quality of life while working in there with all the drugs and
Yeah,
how
it's bad.
horrendous it
It's
smells.
still bad.
Chief, I have a quick unrelated question. Keeping in mind I taught global terrorism at Miami for 10 years, what is that pipe and does it belong there?
The one in the middle?
Pipe.
The pipe against the wall, it's been driving me nuts for,
Oh, in the actual room.
yeah. No, right here in our room.
Yeah, that's.
Oh, this one? I don't know. That's been there for a little bit.
Okay,
It's fine. Yeah, it's-
Okay.
don't worry about it.
all right.
Your closest impact.
I'm looking at the presentation, like, what are you talking about?
Well, I know, I just watched,
Up there, too.
Yeah.
you know what, I just watched the Richard Jewell movie today too, so,
So this is the break room. As you can see on the left of the screen there, we've actually repurposed a decent portion of that to be the area where officers file their reports. So there's no dedicated space for that. So sometimes it can be a little frustrating for them if somebody is on break in the lunchroom and they're trying to file a report or listen to training or whatever that might be, and they're just over there chatting about whatever that might be because they're on break. So a little bit of a tight space, and I mean, you could probably tell just by looking at it, it's not big enough to even house an entire squad at once. Not that we encourage them to take time off, but at the end of their shift, if they're all trying to decompress and maybe take a few moments, they really don't have space inside the department to do that.
So, I mean, just for point of reference during that room, that is a 6-person table. If we count the investigators, civilian staff, officers coming off the road, different administrative positions, we have upwards of, if everybody works 8 to 12 or 8 to 5, whatever their hours are, they might, I think it's safe to say noon is a good lunchtime. There could be 20 people trying to go to lunch at the same time, or at least operating in this room at the same time. There's no way someone can sit there and try to work on a report or contact citizens at that phone that's over there on the left side. It's a weird shaped room. Side note.
So this area is actually up at the impound lot. This is, as we were saying earlier, we try to find any time space that we can to store items. You can see that whoever did the storage in the picture on the bottom right was very meticulous as well.
That's our PPE.
Yeah, so again, just cram for space, trying to find anywhere we can, including, there's just some more photos here, and I think we've even got a couple additional photos beneath the senior center. So all that said, we wanted to remind you all real quick, we did, as part of the facility master plan, look at the police department, look at some alternatives on site, look at some alternatives off site. So I've just included those in the presentation. When it comes to main campus strategies, this was one of the high level items. So having said all of that, we wanted to provide you all with some options and some ideas of what these things cost moving forward. So if we wanted to go the route of a levy, we've placed just 3 items on there for you all to consider. If you wanted to maintain operations with 0 changes, 0 capital, that would be about a 4.65 mil levy. If you wanted to, say, look at building a new police station but utilizing debt, you're looking at a 4.99 mil levy. And if you were looking at building a new station and not using debt, you'd be looking at a 6.10 mil levy. Naturally, there's a continuum in there between those numbers of different alternatives, different things that we could consider. There's still some spaces that we could build out, but we would need some capital dollars to do. But as I mentioned at the beginning, we wanted to look at both sides of the ledger. So other alternatives that we could consider would be reducing staff, which would be reducing about 15 roles in the police department. We could look at reducing positions in the general fund and development department. We could look at eliminating our parks, and we could look at cutting upwards of $1 million from the roads program. So these are all various levers that we have at our disposal that we can pull on. Those are important to keep in mind for a lot of reasons. Even if we were to move forward with a levy, there's still a chance a levy could fail. And then you've got to be prepared to know what strategies you have to still close gaps that may exist. So wanted to throw these all out there for you all to consider. And really why we're here today is to get direction from you all. So I'm looking for you all to provide some insight into how you would prefer to solve the financial gap, any additional things that you might be thinking about, or items that you would like to reduce in our operations, and then just sort of the multi-year direction for building and facility needs. So that's the end of our presentation, but we wanted to turn the floor over to you all for a conversation, which is the next item on the agenda, I believe.
Chief, thank you so much, and you and I have already talked about this at some great length, and two questions occurred to me going through the presentation. So you have a huge need for storage. Is it predominantly on-site, or is there a large amount that could be off-site?
So we tried off-site, and that's why our impound lot is so overwhelmed. It's honestly it hampers production and hampers everyday work when we have to stop everything we're doing, go up there and go through the impound lot to find what we need to come back here. We lose time, to have an off-site storage is not as beneficial as it's not recommended.
So could you give me an example of something that would be like an off-site item that you might need because sometimes I think off-site, you may not need it for 60, 90 days. It's not that big a deal, but it sounds like some of the stuff you might need on a bi-weekly basis or something, or that you've got people going back and forth.
So majority of the items at the impound lot, we could probably use, maybe half of them on every other, maybe at least once a month or multiple times a month type of conversation. We actually have part of the impound lot is our criminal investigative unit. They're up there every day. I drove past them today when they were working scenes and processing cars up there as well. That's not a terrible location to have because they're able to work off-site and they can just drive up there and do their work up there. That's a great place for them to be able to do that, and our strategy of putting that up there was great. All the storage in the other half, that would preferably be here. That's equipment, that's the Polarises, that's our trailer, that's long-term storage or like our PT equipment where we do our PT testing. We do that twice a year. That's a perfect place to have off-site. But when we're talking about equipment and PPE and different items like that, that would preferably be underneath one roof.
And I think I asked you this once before, but I don't think we circled back to it. Tell me and again, I don't know the answer to this. Tell me the use or the advantage or disadvantages of a satellite type. I know that, for instance, we used to have one. Green has a satellite.
So being somebody that worked in Southern Colerain when we had the CRC, which was at Old GT Tavern, now the Duke property down there, that was there to be able to allow the Southern officer to stay satellite from coming back every single time they had to do paperwork. Same basic principle that we could do in various parts of the township. It's only beneficial to the Southern people, the Southern officer, typically one officer working at a time. It was beneficial because I could go there, get my paperwork knocked out, and go back out, and I was able to just stay in my area down there. I could eat lunch down there. It's beneficial for that, but that was a lot of expense for one location.
For one, okay.
Yeah.
And what you didn't include in your report is the condition of our impound lot.
Oh.
So that was not told to
so
the public how that is in dire need of help also.
Every aspect of the impound lot is in massive need of repair. The pavement is falling away. It needs to be resurfaced. It needs to be restriped. The fence has holes cut into it various places. different areas it's leaning.
But we have a roof issue too, and we have
So-
storage there, so we have
Once you get to the
some,
building, and you start talking about the building, we have various issues. It's a very, it's an older building, it's at least 60 years old. The roof is a flat roof that's been maintained the best that could have been, but it has some massive issues that's going on now.
Right.
We leak on top of various items that we have inside the property or in our different property of our equipment and different items that's in there from different various items that are in there. It just leaks on it.
Right.
So we have a lot of different issues. Every aspect that I could tell you is need of massive repair at the impound lot.
yeah, we didn't have any pictures of that, so I just want to let the public know how bad that is also.
I don't know that it could even be used post us for
Right.
anything really else.
So, in a beautiful world of the police department, you would like your impound lot on the same station, and you would like secure area for your police officers to park their vehicles so they don't get broken into.
So that's actually a pretty good area for me to talk on for a second. Is,
Okay.
one thing we did talk about the back door that we didn't have a chance to really go through is the need of having secured parking.
Right.
We have incidents in the past where we've had people walk up on our officers while they're unloading their cruisers into their personal vehicles. We had someone walk up on an officer to the point that it became an officer needs assistance call. We've had diesel dumped in our tanks in the parking lot. We've had, I could not tell you in the short walk that I have from where I park my car to the walking in the door, and probably dozens of times in my career that I've been stopped by people that come directly to you while your hands are full walking in the door, and it is not. We are one of the only departments in this area that does not have some sort of gated or secure parking for our officers.
Right.
Quite a few of them actually even have covered parking. So that's a big thing, that every single time that it snows, rains, sleets, freezes, our officers have to, we kind of have a rule of thumb that they either have to dig out their own car when they get there, or if someone tries to start their car for them, they have to then sit out there and watch the car so no one steals their car. So we don't really have a great plan for when we have the dire need of when 5-6 inches of snow comes through. We're going to have to dig our cars out.
When this facility was built, it wasn't built for the tomorrows. It was built for the yesteryear and the today. It was,
So this building was originally built for our section over here. Was built for roughly 30 employees. So that was 25 officers and roughly, give or take, it was 3 civilian staff at the time, back in 1998. So we have massively eclipsed that to where we're at 83, and spoiler alert, with our school district contract that's going to be coming, probably the next is going to take us up to 87.
right.
So we are almost 3 times the capacity of what the building was originally built for.
Those were my primary concerns for you guys.
Hi, Chief. I have no doubt there's a need for an operating levy, and I met with you last week, and we had a very nice conversation. Your presentation here, everything seems consistent with what's been reported to us monthly during my time here. You mentioned there's 83 employees. How many of them are here at once, though, at one time?
If I could say the worst time that everyone's here,
There's about 30?
I'd say probably upwards of maybe 35.
Okay. You mentioned Monroe built a new facility. I was up there recently. It seems to me they're the ones that moved into some retail space near the city hall, and that's not something you're thinking about, is it?
No, so they it's a refabbed IGA. Yeah, IGA.
Right.
That was a grocery store that they were able to
my
get fairly cheap and be able to.
Right, yeah, there's a big retail space up the street, but I don't think that's practical because we don't know where that's going to be 3 to 5 years from now.
Ideally, I mean, cart and horse situation here is, I would prefer not using some of our funds to have to go purchase a new property. That's
Right.
a lot of funds that would be put into just dumping into a property.
Right, I know, but you mentioned that, so I wanted to bring up, I was up at Monroe. The hollow door that goes into that's a design flaw with this building, to have a hollow door going into a police department.
So that's not a hollow door going, there's a steel fire door that goes into the front door. That
Okay.
is That extra door that you saw in that picture was
Right.
put there for the restrictions that are required through RCIC, and just to have a visual deterrent where people can see.
Right,
what's
so
happening.
why, is it a problem then that you mentioned it, or is it something that needs to be immediately replaced?
It is preferred not to bring people into the station that you're doing fingerprints for. There should be a standalone area that's outside of the internal workings of the police department that you should not be taking them in there for fingerprinting. Heck, you're doing the background check at that point for somebody else.
Right.
But you're bringing them in your station.
And during our meeting, we talked about the basement of this building, which is vastly underused, and hopefully you'll be able to move some of your activity down there for now. And then back in January, the trustees gave up our office, and you've put our environmental crime person in the office and a couple other people. So hopefully that helped a little bit.
That definitely helped, because we had an area that we just didn't have an area so that they can work, and being able to have them in there is a huge.
Sure,
benefit.
and you know, as I told you last week, I have no doubt there's a need for an operating levy, but, you know, we're just starting construction of these two firehouses, and I'd really rather wait until those are done before we take another step, rather than get into three big building projects right now, just because that's how you get upside down, is taking on too much at once. So what were your expenditures in 22 versus 23? Well, 23 is not done yet, obviously, but
Yeah, we'll have to dig in on that and get you a number. It's a little difficult with the police budget the past 2 years because we've put money into the CARES Act for
Right.
police. So it's probably artificially deflated in the police fund. If you bear with me a moment, I could probably pull that up in just a second if you have.
are
any
you
questions.
going to ask us for a millage number tonight, or because I obviously haven't talked to the other two trustees?
Yeah, so if you all are looking at a millage number, and you were looking at a millage number to what you had stated with just maintaining operations without anything additional, we're forecasting a need of 4.65 mils.
And how much does 1 mil generate?
Right now, it's just north of $1 million, somewhere between $1 million and $1.2 million, I
So
believe.
4.65 mils would generate
About $6 million.
$5 or $6 million. In the last three budget years for the township as a whole, we've run an approximate $5 million budget surplus.
Yes.
If we took $2 million of that and put it into the PD, that would enable us to get this levy at the same place where the fire department levy was 3 years ago, which would make it a 3 mils, because, you know, you also got to think about the folks that are paying for this. So if through your astute management, you've managed to generate a $5 million surplus for the township every year. We're not a bank, and we should have some emergency money aside, but I'd rather use some of that and keep the levy about the same as the operating levy was for the fire department.
Yeah, I think the big challenge there is restricted dollars versus unrestricted dollars. And if you start to peel back that onion of which funds are performing under and generating the savings that we could use for that, the fund that you really have to look at is the general fund. And I want to say the general fund last year was under, but it was less than $1 million that it was under compared to budget.
So the other millions are from what type of
It
funds?
could be the fire fund, it could be the road funds, it could be the police fund, it could be, you know, our special assessment fund, it could be our CDBG funds. So they're just all, I think we've got somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 to 30 funds.
I would just as soon use as much of that as we can for the police, because I have no doubt that we need to, you know, with the renegotiated contracts this year, we need to fund those, and that's our responsibility. So I would like to use any of those budget surpluses towards that, and I would think the rest of it would come in the form of an operating levy. And I don't know what, having not talked to the other trustees, I don't know where they're at on this, so.
Well, if I may, before we, the basement, you're right, we do have, there's underutilized area down there, but with the fire department and the issue that we're having down at the training center, they have some dire need down there as well. So
In
it's-
this basement,
Yes.
okay.
So it's going to be a shared space for everyone that could possibly need it. I don't want to grab as much and say mine, mine, mine. I'm a good friend and a good, you know, I share well. That's what my mom always said. So.
Oh, I
they
don't
need
doubt that,
some
and
stuff.
hopefully, in the interest of efficiency, we would be designing it for different groups to use it, and it's in a very secured area that's not accessible to the public, and just like your wing of the building is now. So,
And if I may, on the general fund piece, just as a reminder, something that we had been discussing in prior work sessions was this idea of capital projects for the long term and utilizing that same savings for that. So in theory, if we went that route, we would not be setting aside dollars to be able to repair buildings in a way that we had been discussing. So that would just be...
but right now, it's not in a capital fund, it's in a...
It's a line item in the budget held aside so that we could plan for other capital purchases in the future. So what we would be doing is probably just not being able to do the same level of routine maintenance that we were going to be planning on doing moving forward or requesting.
And I'm interested to hear what Matt and Kathy have to say, because I believe you've talked to all three of us separately, and I haven't heard any feedback from them, so.
Well, right now, our basement's in disrepair from water leakage from 2 different events. So that space really isn't being able to be utilized. And I know we have talked about, you've done some facts and figure checking about remodeling a building versus buying and building from new. You are leaning towards remodeling and one of the buildings.
The staffing study actually recommend that it was better to remodel an existing building than it would be to build new. It would be cheaper.
Right.
So a couple observations, piggybacking off that last point. You and I have talked about this. I want the footprint of the township to be less in buildings we own. For my next point here, which is a frustration of mine when I was at North College Hill, a frustration of mine at Colerain. It's probably just a frustration in government. This phrase called deferred maintenance. You're under the pressure of the fact that I work at a building that's 100 years old, and it's immaculate. And I hate the idea that and Jeff Weckbeck just brought it up, that, well, we may have to defer some of that maintenance. That's the last thing I want to, I am like militant about that. I want to take care of what we have and not let it get to the point. We have 2 major roof issues on 2 of our buildings. If you look at the impound and if you look at the fire training center, and roof issues, when you talk about buildings like that, are like $1.5, $2, $3 million. It gets up there to, because aren't they mostly all box guttered kind of, and it's difficult. So that's my first thing. The second thing that kind of scares me, and I communicated this via email to you guys, and it hit me when my neighbor's house sold, because it's basically the same floor plan as mine. And I think I bought mine maybe 5 years ago. My neighbor's and I have a 2-car garage. The neighbor doesn't. That's the only difference between the 2 homes. It sold for almost double what I paid for mine, which is great, I guess.
Welcome to Colerain Real Estate.
Yeah,
Selling.
but we're going to get reassessed in the summer, and that's going to be for some people, I think, a little. And I don't know what that'll look like. I don't know if typically do they communicate that to us, or do they reassess them all at once, or do they step them in? How do we? I like to have that as we. And I think you said it happens at the end of the summer, but I'd like to have some kind of idea what that's going to look like too, because that's going to be a major issue, I think.
Yeah, I think the challenge here is that the auditor is not going to have those new numbers until after all documents would be due down to the Board of Elections for a levy for this cycle. Now, the way that the levy is structured, the dollar amount of revenue that is on that ballot is what would be generated. So if the assessed valuation of the township increases from the date of that levy vote to next year, it's going to be still the same dollar value will be raised.
I'm sorry, I'm talking about the general fund.
Yes, and so and so,
Yes,
if you're looking at the general fund, I think I sent you the number. It was maybe 700,000 or something like that we get in terms of property tax revenue. So to see something large enough to offset some of the needs in the police department, you'd have to be seeing 100 to 200% increases in valuations across the entire township, which I think would be a historic increase that we've never seen before.
So let's talk about this just for a second, and I'm going to ask you to kind of read the tea leaves a little bit, because I have no idea what a historic level of home value increase looks like and tax. I mean, you were talking about the amount of money raised in the general fund. I'm concerned about what people's taxes will go up for their property taxes, just so we know what we're dealing with. The last thing that I think that we need is somebody to get a big tax bill in, 3 weeks before there's a levy.
Yeah, so this is on the screen here, the last decade or so of property tax valuations. So you saw a major reassessment. This is what we're talking about, is the full reassessment that took effect in 2012. And that's where you see kind of the real hit of the recession hit. And then when you look forward to 2019 and 2020, that's when you're looking at another one of these reassessments going through from the 2018. And so you see it starting to climb back up. We are just now kind of at a little bit above where we were pre-recession. So will there be growth? I absolutely expect that there will be. But I'm not sure that it's going to be at a significant enough level to create a huge offset to potential funding needs.
And again, I'm not focused on the funding needs as much as right now the impact on the property owner. The other issue is if there is a significant increase, there are some who suggest, and I'm not an economist, but some that suggest that we'll see some drawback, that some of those that they perhaps could be overinflated right now, and that we're going to see a market correction. I mean, I don't think that's being radical in saying that.
No, I think it's coming.
I'm going to just be the devil's advocate here, because most of the mortgage institutes of America are saying there will not be a crash because of the fact that the mortgage lenders were so strict. It was over a 650 credit score. The debt to income ratios, they were much more stringent on giving people loans that aren't going to be foreclosed on.
But with the interest rate going up, I think that's going to have a large impact on demand.
Well, it is demand. There's 40 houses for sale in all of Groesbeck, Montford Heights, Whiteoak, and Colerain Township. There is the demand. There's just not the product out there. Houses are still selling in days for over asking, even though the interest rates have gone up.
So
It's just not, I'm concerned about the macro view.
Yeah, and to your point, there are two pieces to your property tax bill. You've got what's called inside millage and outside millage. What we're talking about is outside millage, so that's what gets collected, a set dollar amount. Inside millage is capped per state law at 10 mils across an entire jurisdiction, across all taxing bodies. Hamilton County, I think, is just over 2 mils of inside millage. We're about 2 mils, and I think the remainder goes to the school district. So when you see those big increases in valuation, that's kind of how it plays out in terms of where the new revenue is going to go. So when we're talking a very small piece for our general fund, there are larger pieces that will hit the tax bill that will hit the taxpayer.
Right, and I'm not talking, I guess I didn't make myself clear. I'm talking about my end as the consumer.
Yes, that's
Yeah,
what I'm referencing.
Yeah.
Well, you're in the consumer, do you have any figures, if your house is reassessed with this new millage that we would add on there for a $300,000 house, what would it cost in addition? We were going over some of the figures. Let's
Right,
do
but I'm talking about,
300.
I'm talking about the unknowns.
Right.
That's a known.
Right.
Well, you can give me that number. I'm worried about the unknowns, which will be when the new assessments, who knows?
Well, I'm just saying, if
Yeah.
you're, with the new assessment, so you're assessed at 300, with this new millage, what it would be. I'm just trying to calculate ahead.
Right.
Okay, if your house is worth 225, and if it goes up to 300, I'm just giving it
Well, yeah, we can do
That's what I'm just
the police money, right? But I don't know that we can,
The rest of the inside millage
Yeah.
is gonna
Right.
be the missing piece.
Yeah.
and that's what, I think a lot of people are very, and again, look, I agree with what's been set up here. You guys need it. And I'm going to fight for the police and, police and fire, EMS, I'll fight for the first responders to get everything they need, but at the same time, I don't want to leave too much of a footprint on the taxpayer. So it's as far as what Mr. Weckbach said, what is your guidance? I think my guidance is to slam as many public hearings as we can in this next time period, and hear from as many citizens as we can, and hear as many ideas as what we can, so that we can, the more we communicate that and the more debate and discussion that we have, theoretically, I think the better model we're going to get from that.
Yeah, we had the discussion also, one of the last statistics that came out, that 70% of America now is living paycheck to paycheck and has less than 400 in a catastrophic savings account. And people are using their credit cards, so because the cost of gas, eggs, they're using their credit cards to offset that. So yeah,
Cough drops, this was
I know,
$7.
$7, yeah. So yeah, so that's what we're trying to watch out for the
Yeah.
public also.
And I heard another statistic that just blew my mind. It's kind of related to that, is the fact that a third of the people that have car payments in the United States have car payments of $1,000 or more a month. I can't imagine that.
Well, be a loan officer and go, what debts do you have? And those cars are just higher than some of their house payments.
Yeah.
They can be because of how high they are, yes.
That's why I work on my own stuff.
Well, yeah,
I don't have any of that right now at this point in my life. I just live that way. I haven't heard a millage call out, and I don't know that we're going to get one tonight. Can you work up and see what that did for the fire department 3 years ago and what that would do for us now? That'd be a good comparison. And then see what, out of the $5 million surplus that we seem to be running, see how much of that you could actually put into this so that the Chief Cordy would, in his net, would get that to that 4.65 he's looking for. I just as soon use up some of our budget overage. And I don't know if these other two have an opinion on it or not, but I guess we need to start somewhere. Because
you
that's
do-
what we did for the fire department 3 years ago.
So, in terms of next steps, there are a few process things that we have to do. One is we have to send a letter down to the auditor to certify millage rates. You can send as many of those as you would like. So that's sort of the next step. After that, then you'll get some feedback from the auditor that says this millage will generate exactly this dollar amount for you. Then we have to vote on any potential ballot language that there might be. So that would be the step after that. Then it would go on the ballot, and then it would be there in November. So in terms of timing and process-wise, we probably have to have that rate for millage to the auditor by our first meeting in June. So my recommendation would be that if you all have some millage numbers in mind, instruct me of that. You can either send me something individually or we can talk about it here. And then I will put that on the May agenda, so to Matt's point, we can keep talking about this, have another conversation then, and then at the June agenda, there could be a vote to send down one or multiple rates or no rates, depending on what we want to do. And then what we get back from the auditor, we can then have additional conversation at second meeting in June and first meeting in July for a final vote.
So, oh,
Did
sorry.
you get that figure about what it would cost a homeowner of about $300,000?
At which rate?
Do the 4.9 or 4.65
Okay, give me 1 second, but if you guys want to.
or 4.99, whatever.
I'm going to solicit the information of what 3 mills would do, and then we can see how much of the $5 million surplus that we've had consistently the last 3 years, how much of that we can divert to the police, because I want to find the chief's request. He knows how to run a police department. I do not. I know what you're looking for operations. I just want to figure out a way to do that with the least impact on the folks, those of us that live here and are paying those bills.
So Jeff, last time with the fire, and I think you did this, you had like a little nifty little calculator. I could take off a building, I could increase the levy, I could decrease the levy, I could, can you get us something like that?
Yep, I have that. So.
All right, and
Hamilton County has a calculator on the, if homeowners can go to Hamilton County Auditor and put their home prices in to see what their tax revaluation might cost them. Just put in certain numbers.
but this would be from an administrative, say, yeah, okay. And if you could get us a list of those hard deadlines for dates. I know I'm giving you all kinds of homework here.
He's writing it down pretty quick.
Yeah,
so-
school's almost out, so I got to give somebody homework. So, and I think that the one thing I learned from the fire, look, I like a system. I like to be systematic, and I like to know when the drop dead deadline date is, not the drop dead deadline figuring that I'm going to be a week late.
Okay.
Yeah, if that makes sense. I think we need to keep those discussions going. Now, the date you said is June to send in, we could send in 30 different rates in June.
We could,
Okay.
And that may bog down their process for how quickly they get back to us. That's one of the unknown variables. Typically, it's 30 days or less, and so that gives us plenty of cushion to be
Well,
able
and
to
there's a new auditor down there, so I don't want to,
Right, I'm just throwing that in, but so when do we need to lock in where we want to be, if we want to be, or what we?
The absolute last date is the second meeting of July that we have to be completely locked
Okay.
in. My preference, of course, would be locked in at the first meeting of July. That way, we've got extra time in case the Board of Elections has some issue with the language. That way, we've got a fallback date to potentially correct anything. So there's new levy language per a state bill that went through recently that's going to impact what we send down. We have to tweak what it says and how it says it. So if for some reason we put something before you all and it winds up being wrong, that's where having that second meeting in July is helpful to correct it without having to do a special meeting.
Okay, and I had just forgotten what the other two have talked about spending down that additional. I'm pretty committed to this capital reserve fund. It was a long-term solution for issues like this. So I want to be as careful as we can. And you said something about the language of the. I'm going to go ahead and vote for English.
Okay, that's fair.
so.
He's
I
taking
don't know that
medication.
I don't know that we've directed any of that into the capital reserve fund yet. That's not all the TIF, part of that's the TIF money, but part of it's something else.
Right.
Would it be okay with you if he just researched what 3 mills would do?
Sure.
Okay, great. There you got 2 of us. So please do that.
I mean, I'll look at any numbers you got. I mean, I think that this needs to be a holistic view, and I mean, and look at what our potential. I mean, I'm asking Chief here if he could store stuff in my garage for storage.
Next to the
There's no
Corvette.
room.
Yeah,
Next to your Corvette.
yeah. My Grand Torino.
There you go.
So I will bring back answers to some of those questions. There will be an item for 3 mills to consider at the next meeting, and then
And
we'll
how much of
continue
that,
the conversation.
how much of our budget surplus that we've had consistently the last 3 years could go to this so that we're able to fund what you think you need for operating? And like I said, we're into 2 firehouses right now, and as soon as those are built, I'm ready to take the next step, but not until those are done and paid for. So, and which is consistent with what I told you last week. So,
And if you send that link to the little calculator thing, I might come back and say, hey, could you run this?
Yeah, that's fair.
Numbers on this. I mean, I think that, again, holistically look as many as we can.
And I know we're running up on time for the work session, and we had on the work session agenda citizen comment, but with leisure of the board, I think it would make sense to roll
was
that
there
into the
anybody
next
that
meeting,
wanted to,
just to ensure that they can speak at the next meeting and have the full time, and we can get the next meeting
And
started.
again, I want to reemphasize as many public hearings as and let's throw, for the heck of it, it hasn't happened since I've been here, and I don't know if we can even do that with the other 2 folks' work schedule. I'd like to do like a morning or a Saturday or something, and I don't know if that's possible to get.
Saturday would be better for me. I know you're off during the summer.
Right, I know, I'm not trying to.
Every day Saturday for you in the summer, so, can we, I guess during the regular meeting, which starts in 3 minutes, we can take citizens' address on this topic, because we're not
Sure.
making any decisions. So just to keep things running on time, do we have to motion to do that, or can we go ahead and see?
I think we can just motion to adjourn this meeting, which I will do.
Is that okay, Scott? Was there, we don't need an executive session during this meeting, so then.
No.
So were you going to motion for that, Matt?
I just did, yeah, motion for adjourn.
I'll second it, because it's 6:58.
Okay, so 6:58, we are closing this meeting of
To
this.
take a vote?
Yeah, oh, well.
Ms.
okay,
Orich?
yeah. Yes,
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
We'll start
Okay,
in what, 2 minutes?
yes, 6:58, yes. Yes. Okay, it's officially 7:01. This is going to begin the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees for May 9th, 2023.
Call the attendance.
I can do that.
Okay. I thought you were going to jump into the flag.
Jeff?
Ms. Orich?
Yes, here.
Mr. Unger?
Here.
Mr. Waller?
Here.
Okay, we can stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And for our moment of meditation, let's please
Put all our efforts into stopping the hatred that results in the loss of life from these shootings that are plaguing our country. And for our first responders that are putting their lives on the line to protect and save lives. I thank you. Okay, we have some approval of minutes.
Yes, Board, I have, I'm asking for the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees from April 25th, 2023.
A motion that we approve the April 25th, 2023 minutes.
I'll second that.
Any discussions?
I sent you 3 clarifications and typos.
As I said in the email, they've been dealt with, yes.
Okay, sure. No other comments?
No other comments?
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
All right, Board, the first item tonight is a presentation by Chief Cordy to introduce and swear in some new police officers.
Oh, good evening.
Good evening.
Give me 1 second here.
Our men in blue are piling in for the public.
Thank you, Board. I have 3 brand-new officers that I'm going to swear in tonight, and if I could have all 3 come up here with me. Barb, Caleb, and Jack. Stand right here for me. Directly, let's start with Barb. She's closest to me. No, you know what? You can do it. You can do a turnaround, the whole thing. This is Barb. All right. All right, I have Barb Aylward. Barb here graduated from the University of Cincinnati with her associate's degree in criminal justice. She comes to us from Green Township Police Department, where she was an officer from March of 2002 until she joined us just a few weeks ago. Prior to coming to Colerain Township, she was a member of HCPA SWAT as a communications team leader. During her time at Green Township, she's earned numerous letters of recommendations and awards. I would like to specifically point out that she's the recipient of an award of valor for her involvement in an incident in 2019. Sorry, guys, you get to follow Barb. Caleb, you're next, buddy. Officer Caleb Grody.
Oh.
Caleb started with the department in 2022 at the end of the year as a police officer cadet. He successfully completed the police academy earlier this year and has been on patrol for about 6 weeks. He's a graduate of Oak Hills High School and he did 4 years of active service with the United States Marine Corps. Directly next to him, Jack Yomgren. Jack started the department again in January of 2023 as a police officer cadet. They were in the Jack and Caleb were in the same class, and they completed the academy together, and has been on patrol also for 6 weeks. It's actually, on a side note, it's pretty fun to watch these two interact. It's just fun. We've done a couple things together, and here these two go back and forth, and the amount of grief that they give each other. I'm still not sure which one actually was a better shot. I know Jack won top shot in his academy class, but I believe there's debate still currently outstanding, so we'll make sure we check that one out. But these two are kind of fun to watch. Jack is a graduate of Moeller High School. He did almost 4 years of active service with the United States Army and is currently serving in the Army National Guard. Barb, if you have anybody here tonight with you, would you like to introduce them?
Certainly. I have my mom and my Aunt Barb, my dad, Jeff, my boyfriend, my very close friend Rob and his better half.
Chief, I think we need the mic here. I don't know that we're catching all this. Yeah.
Yeah.
My parents are here this evening with my aunt, Officer Rob Studnicka from Green Township, brought his much better half Barb, my boyfriend Jeff, all of my friends and colleagues with Colerain, and Jen Setters is in the back with her parents, Colerain residents. Jen was on SWAT with me. She serves with Reading PD.
Oh, awesome.
Here you go, buddy.
So I have my mom, my stepfather, his daughter, my sister-in-law, my son Henry, and my wife Cameron. And then all my colleagues at Colerain are here as well.
Unfortunately tonight, because my family's on vacation in Florida, I just bring the Colerain Police Department.
All right, let's stand over here, guys. Let's stand and face this way. Hopefully you guys remember this, okay? All right, raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Stanley Brody,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will uphold the Constitution of the United States of America
that I will uphold the Constitution of the United States of America
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio
and its bylaws.
and its bylaws.
I will abide by
I will abide by
the Colerain Police Department
the Colerain Police Department
mission and value statement,
mission and value statement,
code of ethics,
code of ethics,
rules and regulations,
rules and regulations,
and police department policy and procedure.
and police department policy and procedures.
I will faithfully discharge the duties
I will faithfully discharge the duties
of police officer
of police officer
in and for Colerain Township,
in and for Colerain Township,
Hamilton County,
Hamilton County,
State of Ohio,
State of Ohio,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, everybody. Welcome aboard. Thank you for your service. And thank you for your
Thank you.
reserve service as well. Thank you.
Thank you, and congratulations to you and your families.
And I just thank you, congratulate and thank you for coming to Colerain Township. Dean, somebody took Raina outside. Oh, they brought her back. Raina is our new beautiful dog.
She's currently upset because she's not with Dean.
Well, should we introduce Raina? Yeah, she was out there, yeah.
And I'll be back.
Okay.
All right, board. While folks are vacating the room, I'm going to ask that Department Director David Miller step to the dais to introduce the next item for you all. This is a public hearing related to a zoning commission case, ZA 2023-03, which is related to the rezoning of a portion of 8940 Colerain Avenue. So, if David, if you'd like to step up, I think you're up first tonight.
Mr. Miller, welcome.
Maybe our public speaker. We have a citizens address time, I believe. Is that?
Yes.
Okay, I was outside. As you all know, we've been through probably 15 months of proper exercise to demolish some buildings in the township that have become neighborhood problems and magnets for crime, and neighbors have endured a lot. And so as we have properly gone through this process, according to the Ohio Revised Code, we have had a few properties, as you know, that have had the owners step up and offer to...
David, I think we're doing the public hearing on the zone change.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
I was
I was
You're a
jumping
step ahead.
on
That's okay.
I
Citizens
was going
address.
like, I was going like this.
Oh, okay. Reboot. So let's try this again. So this is a zoning change on ZA 2023-03. It is rezoning a portion of 8940 Colerain Avenue from R6 to B2. We do have the representative, Ken Griffith from Bryant Builders, and they are doing an addition of a new service building for Kenwood Auto Group, and that is the rezoning of a portion of their property will add some green space to the existing dealership and their lot for impervious surface. It does not meet that percentage to be able to add this extra building. So once we add the green space to it, that impervious percentage will properly fit into our zoning resolution. And so that is the necessary purpose of the rezone. And so I wanted to invite Ken Griffith up from Bryant if he has any additional comments.
First, I think we need to motion to open up a public hearing on zoning commission case ZA 202303, rezoning a portion of 8940 Colerain Avenue from R6 to R2.
I'll second.
R6 to B2?
B2, I'm sorry. And I think we need to call up anybody, have anybody stand that's going to testify.
I think Kathy, you seconded
I
it, or should
seconded
I?
it.
Okay.
Go ahead. Well,
Yeah, after we vote, yeah.
Me too. Okay.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
If you wish to testify, please stand up and identify yourself.
I'm Ken Griffith.
Please, you swear to tell the truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Griffith.
Okay, so we're going to take you off the citizen's address, and you're going to speak now. Is that what you want to do? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what so I'm taking you off the citizen's address.
He's for the public hearing, not the citizen address, I
Well,
think.
he signed it in for the-
I got you.
Okay. I just want to put that on
Please
the
state
record.
your name and address.
Signed in.
Ken Griffith. I work for Bryant Builders. Our address is 517 Windsor Park Drive in Centerville, Ohio. We work with the Kenwood Auto Group. We do all their work. The purpose of the rezoning is not to disturb the portion that's going to be rezoned, but to be able to build on the existing asphalt. Everything that, I know there's some concerns of water runoff. Everything from that building will be collected, put into the storm, piped into the storm system. We will not be disturbing. You would not want to disturb the property that's being rezoned. It is probably a 40-foot ravine. It's a wooded area. Our plan is to leave it just like it is and build them a additional shop space. So if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
David, did you want to give us or you want to do that later? With the paperwork that you gave us? Okay.
So,
I was able to talk to you earlier, and that's consistent with what you explained.
so. Good?
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
good.
fine.
We're good.
Thank you.
And if there are no others wishing to speak on this public hearing, then I would recommend a motion to close.
Motion to close the public hearing of zoning commission case ZA 22303, rezoning a portion of 8940 Colerain Avenue from R6 to B2.
I will second it. No discussion from me.
No discussion.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. The next item on the agenda is another public hearing. This is a update to our Township Allocated Community Development Block Grant Program. As a brief intro, we set the public hearing for tonight. There is not any action to be taken tonight. That action is contemplated for the next board meeting. This is a requirement per Hamilton County CDBG anytime that there is a potential change to their funding streams and proposed allocations. So just some highlights, just real high level. We had 3 items in the plan that we felt were either not going to be completed this year or needed to be repurposed because the work had been completed and dollars were left over. So those 3 items were the Grow Spec Strategic Plan. So there was a set dollar amount set aside by CDBG that was only to be used for the planning phase of that. That planning phase was done. There was $13,000 left over, so now it has to be reallocated or it will just go back to the federal government. There's $60,000 for tree plantings, and then there was $55,000 for sidewalk repairs, thanks to the revenue that's being spurned in our, or spinned off in our CDBG sidewalk repair fund. those dollars can now be reallocated to another purpose. And looking at various items that could be improved that would make sense with those dollars, one item is the facade improvement program. This is something that we talked about in context of the budget. There were several votes by the board in terms of releasing program applications and guidelines, and so this would just move those dollars officially at a future vote. And then the other piece would be to look at installing a new playground at Skyline Park with those remaining funds. So brief intro on the reason that we're having this public hearing, and I would recommend that you all open the public hearing.
That we open a public hearing on the Community Development Block Grant.
I'll second that.
Mr. Bay, no discussion?
No discussion from me.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Ms. Strunger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
If anyone wishes to testify, please stand up, identify yourselves. All right. Nobody's identified themselves?
So I would
I motion that we close the public hearing on the Community Development Block Grant.
I'll second.
No discussion?
No discussion?
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Ms. Strunger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. The next items on the agenda are citizen address. So as a reminder, if you did not fill out a citizen address card, there are some in the lobbyway. If you do so and bring that up to us, we can make sure to get you on for speaking.
Okay, I have 4. We had 5, and we're taking Ken out. Okay, first one is Bruce Prino.
Good afternoon, trustees.
Hello, thanks for coming.
Well, see what I have to say. Coming in late, I forgot there was a meeting before this one. I wasn't going to speak, but I going to. Far as a police levy, anybody who knows me, I'm a strong supporter of police and fire. It is the major reasons for having a public entity. As I've told previous boards, and I think maybe some of you on this board, that I do not agree with having independent levies for police and fire. It should be part of a general levy. All of the activities in the township should come out of one pot based upon priorities. To me, police and fire are the highest priorities, which means other things need to drop off. But since some of these other activities people wouldn't vote for if you put it on a separate levy, you have police and fire, so you know you're going to get that. Or at least you think you're going to get it. What also kind of set me off was Circle. Reading that we're going to pay people to watch citizens mosaic potholes. That may sound nice, may be nice for people to see, but I think it's a bad use of funds. If we're going to fill potholes, fill potholes. We shouldn't need mosaic designs in the road. That's extra stuff that I don't think we're rich enough for. And I think it's also a good example of misplaced priorities. That's my personal opinion. I think we need to also go look at parks, how much we spend on parks. You say we got a great park system. Maybe. I've only used them once. And I got a suspicion a large number of taxpayers do not use the parks, regardless of what you say, how many people use them. So we need to prioritize everything. Now, in federal service, I did that with over $1 billion. Everything was on the table. And I don't expect you're going to do away with a 3 to 5 mil levy, but I think it needs to be married in with the general fund. Thank you.
Thanks, Bruce.
Thank you.
Okay, we got Raid Janovinsky. Did I say that right? Thank you.
I'm sorry, ma'am, what was your first name again?
It's Jasna. It's Jas as in Sam, N as in Nancy A.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So I We're here again related to McDogs and the noise ordinance for Colerain Township. The noise ordinance I want to kind of reiterate, the noise ordinance does not apply to McDogs, and the trustees do not really have the authority to authorize the noise permit because McDogs is on a non-conformity compliance certificate, which includes a non-conformity use of structure usage. McDogs never had outdoor music, and according to Colerain Township zoning resolution section 11.7.2, no such use shall be extended to occupy any land outside the building. Only 2 blanket permits have been issued in the entire township. Only 2. One to McDogs and another bar within a business zone. McDogs is in a residential zone. The need to change the noise ordinance was made against homeowners' objection and only to benefit one bar owner. The stench of racism could not be more evident by your decision. My father is foreign, and Mr. Teeters happens to be white. Let me answer Mr. Unger's outrage right now. Yes, I believe the decision was racist. Let me address some comments Mr. Unger made during the last meeting. The fact that anyone could call him as he shouted out his phone number if they felt uncomfortable speaking at his meeting, I suggest Mr. Unger visit the neighbor whose house was shot at. They happen to be African American. But Mr. Unger did have time to go by McDogs and check them out. But, not to visit the homeowner 2 doors down from us who was shot at. This noise ordinance allows loud music up until 12 in the morning in a family neighborhood. Are we to be subjected to loud music until midnight all summer long? The ordinance goes from May 1st to October 1st. That is 5 months out of the year. That also eclipses the school year, 3 months of the school year. Are our children required to live with that noise ordinance to 12 in the morning during school hours? You're a teacher, Mr. Waller. I think that is very antithetical to children going to school or elderly people trying to go to bed. The nonconformity compliance certificate changes to the structure. I've mentioned this multiple times. You've done nothing about it. The change of the structure itself, the extension of the tavern from the original square footage, the new concrete patio, the expansion of the fence perimeter, the fence that has had a hole in it that has not been fixed for 6 months now, a minimum of 6 months, which is a safety hazard because there are children in the neighborhood. Parking. We've addressed this many times. Car parking in the grass, on the easement. There's plenty of parking on additional streets, such as Redskin and Capstan. I suggest patrons park there. They can walk to the bar. Easements are not to be parked on according to your own zoning rules. An increase in incidents of crime, traffic accidents due to drunk patrons at McDogs. Just recently, I pulled police reports where they cited a bar fight of 10 people using a pool stick as a weapon. A woman being assaulted, people being under the influence. I have the police reports if you'd like to see them, and throw them away as you usually do after these meetings. Decrease in property value. Decrease in property value due to McDogs property damage to home, public utilities, homeowners, fences, mailbox, telephone poles. Residents on Beavis Lane have requested and received property reductions due to McDogs bar. Even Hamilton County Auditor Office agrees McDogs has an adverse effect on property values. So when you want to get more money for your police officers, by you keeping this bar open and by you allowing them to continue, you're decreasing the amount of income you're bringing in to the schools and to the police officers and to the whole county itself. So basically, you're cutting off your nose just by your face. You want police safety? Well, guess what? Hamilton County Auditor's Office decided that those homes don't have to pay the value of the properties. They get a reduction. The reason they get a reduction is because McDogs has lowered their property value due to the crime. Okay, so I know the racist comment kind of got you. But you know what? I'm sure you have issues with my comment. But what do you call a decision that you made that brings in less property taxes for the township, only benefits one bar owner, and has caused increased crime and property damage to the area. If it's not racist, I'm not really sure what it is.
I
call
motion
it
that we
racism.
give her 2 more minutes, please.
Sure.
I'll second that.
It's ironic about the taxes. I believe we should have a strong police force. I'm all for paying my taxes. My dad is too. My dad actually pays more taxes than anybody, including the bar, which is a business on that street. These are not small houses like the ones in front. These are $500,000 houses, $750,000 houses that sit on 2 and 3 acre lots. A lot of property taxes you're not getting because of your decision. Increased crime because of your decision. And the lack of just transparency where you guys are concerned. I just find it ridiculous. Also, I want to counteract what Mrs. Ulrich said. According to Rocket Mortgage, and I was able to pull this up on my phone in just a few minutes. I am an analyst and I can find things really quickly. I wanted to counter what she said as far as home sales were concerned. As of home sales from March of 2023 to April 2020, from April 2023 to April 20, from March to April of 2023, home sales in Colerain Township have gone down by 26.8%. The sale time has increased by 180.9%. And the days on the market have gone from 10 to 29 days, and the number of homes for sale has gone up 10.9%. So as far as what you were saying is like they're selling like hotcakes. We have no problem. The interest rates are not an issue. They are, because they're not selling. And people are actually moving out. There's a 39% of people who actually sell their home actually move out of Colerain Township. That was another statistics I wanted to include in there. So I'm just saying, I can't believe that you guys have authorized another blanket. Hey, stay up till midnight, 5 months out of the year. We don't care about your school children. We don't care about the elderly. We don't care about crime. We don't care about women being assaulted. We just don't care. And guess what? We're not getting money, but it's okay because this one bar owner, he deserves everything. Property tax owners and property people who own and are on the street, they deserve nothing. Because this one bar owner apparently is more important than everybody else on the street, the children on the street, the residents who are getting shot at on the street. You know, he's more important. And you have made it very obvious that the only reason you could have possibly made that decision is based on race. Thank you.
Next up, Kathy
Thank you.
Moore.
Good evening.
Good evening.
At a previous meeting, I had requested that there be an addition to the minutes from November the 15th, 2022, and that was under the administrative reports, that it just add that the administrator addressed comp time for department heads in regarding my question about it. And then I sent you a packet email to make changes to the March 14th minutes.
Ms. Moore, I'm going to bring that up when we get to the report. I think I emailed you and said with the changes and with the, I didn't mean to interrupt, so please give her the time. The changes in the things you want to put it in the record. Okay. I wanted to have a broader discussion about that. So that's coming.
Will I be able to participate in that?
I don't, it's Ms. Ulrich, it's up to her, but I think there's some valid points that were brought up with, it got me thinking of broader things with, if citizens have complaints about what's in the minutes, is there a process? And the other thing is, I don't think there's a process with, I want this to be put in the record. I don't know, but that we need to have that discussion, I think, and I can elucidate upon that more when we get to your report, if you like.
And I will motion to give you 2 more.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to.
And there was nothing inaccurate about what I requested. Then I had asked some questions last meeting about the lighting district fund. And I have an email that says, in reviewing employee time spent on this and in consultation with our law director, it's determined that a portion of the employee's salary could be paid from the fund. Further, the township has historically charged an administrative fee as of the special assessment process. This fee has been collected and deposited into the fund, and no charge has been applied against the fund for the administrative cost we have incurred. And I don't see how that's possible, that you take a fee out and then you give it back to the fund, so you really didn't charge it anything. And there was a list given to me, and there are 363 names on here that says these people were paid out of the lighting assessment fund. And I only have one other thing to say, and that is that according to your employment process, it says the township intends to provide all applicants a fair and equal opportunity for employment, and employment will be based on merit. And then it says, Colerain Township is committed to fostering a workplace and community that is equitable, diverse, and inclusive. And I don't think those two sentences mean the same thing. They're basically opposite. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, Robert C. Johnson. Hi.
Good evening, sir. Thanks for coming out. All right.
Got some information for you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You have one copy.
I'm gonna read it. Well, I'm not calling, but I'm sorry, I ain't did this in a while. But I'll come here about the property on 2864 Houston Road, Cincinnati, Ohio. Director Miller and members of the board. My name is Robert Johnson. I currently reside in Reynoldsburg, Ohio, with my wife Donisha and my son Blaze. And I've been there for several years, 20 to be exact. I'm here as a representative and grantee of the quick deed submitted by my mother at the Hamilton Recorder's Office in April 2023. A little history about myself. I'm a product of Cincinnati, Colerain Township. In fact, I grew up at 2864 Houston Road with my mother, Ruby. I used to ride my bike to Triple Creek, fish, run around, play baseball with my friends. The beauty of that house, and I would say my father purchased it with his GI Bill funding, and over the years we've had a lot of memories at that homes, that I've will cherish forever. When I became an adult, I relocated to Columbus, Ohio, to build a career in trucking. I couldn't really find any jobs in Cincy that paid any good. And some facts. In the recent few years, my mother and I have had a discussion about quit deeding the house to me, but not much came from it because she wasn't really to commit to those decisions. It was recently brought to my attention that there were issues with the home, including a vote to condemn the home. At the time, I wasn't completely aware of the condition or neglect of the property. My mother and I had a serious, difficult conversation at the time. She agreed to quit deeded to myself and my wife. the strategy we're going with, first, I can't stress enough how we are committed to bring the house back up to code for the neighborhood and the community. We also want to stress again that the property is, currently, no, it's not anymore. Today, the quick deed went through. So, but it's just been challenging to make executive decisions because the house wasn't in my name. So the uncertainty kept us from moving, full speed and actually doing more with the property. But over the last few months, my mother's friends, family, people from church continued to move and remove stuff from the house, help us with the yard. The basement is clear now. The upstairs is being addressed. The roof has been done. The windows have been put in. The last window is supposed to go in the 10th of this month. And we selected some new doors to be installed, but they have to be ordered, and they're kind of like weeks away. The big tree has been getting cut down that was leaning against the property. And we're going to get some siding and some gutters to be replaced. There have been 4 to 6 dumpsters rented, filled, and taken away, with one currently in the driveway today. Additionally, cleared out the back porch, the area near the sheds, and the tax has been paid up to full. She has recently granted me got a permit from the electricity that I've handed you guys, and it should be, I think the electric's on today. So those are the things that we're working on.
I motion that we.
That's pretty good. I did that at home.
Did you need more time?
I'm sweating.
Yeah, it's hot in here anyway. It's hot. It's hot. Yes. Do you need more time?
No,
Okay,
but
okay.
I do want to say, when I found out that the house was going down like that, because I had a buddy, he called me, he said,
Let me go ahead and motion to give you
Right,
2 more minutes.
I'll second.
Okay, go ahead.
okay, he said, he called me, got me on Facebook, and I'm on Facebook, but I'm not on Facebook. So I said, who is this guy hitting me up? And it was my neighbor from when I was young. We used to play, and he said, man, what's going on with your house, man? And I'm like, I don't know. I stay in Columbus now. And he told me that, you need to go check on her. Is your mom okay? I'm like, I talked to her the other day. She's pretty okay. So that's when I went and start looking into the situation. But definitely me and my my kids were gonna move back to Cincinnati. So that's where we're at. We're gonna fix the house up and live in it. That's the plan.
All right, thank you.
I know it would be atypical. Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Since you've driven down from Reynoldsburg, and thank you for coming down, is anybody else trying to make a claim on the house besides you? Do you have any brothers or sisters, or is there a dispute amongst siblings or anything? Because I.
Oh, no.
It's a quitclaim. It's already been filed, he said.
Okay,
It's
so.
already mine.
Okay, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure there wasn't some controversy that I didn't know about. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for coming back, and thank your father for his service.
Oh, hey,
All right.
for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for letting me speak.
Thank you. That's all for citizens' address.
All right, board, next up on the agenda are administrative reports, and we'll kick that off with the fire department.
Chief?
Good evening to the board and those of you in attendance and online. My administrative report, incident responses for April of 2023. We had 824 EMS incidents, 181 fire incidents. We had 32 responses into the Springfield Township Pleasant Run EMS contract area. We had no responses into the Springfield Township West College Hill Golfway contract area. We had one building fire at 9800 Laurel Linda Drive with a $15,000 loss, and we had a search for a person, which was a 4 to 5-year-old, in conjunction with the police department. Property value lost was $16,600. That saved was $1.2 million. For 2023, we have a 90.2% save rate. Our average response time for arrival of the first unit was 5 minutes and 21 seconds. And first unit on the scene, less than 6 minutes, was 64.78%. And I'd like to recognize that on April the 26th, 2023, we had 2 crews recognized at the 42nd Annual Ohio Fire Service Hall of Fame and Fire Awards for Valor. Those were Captain Mike Kakey, Lieutenant Chris Prosser, and firefighter-paramedic Tyler Abatello. In addition, Lieutenant Niehaus, Lieutenant Prosser, Lieutenant Schneeberger, and Lieutenant Seamer. Those were 2 different incidents. To the best of our knowledge, it's the first time that 2 crews from the same department were recognized for valor in those 42 years. And in addition, over those 42 years, Chief Snyder has been recognized, Chief Smith has been recognized, Assistant Chief Releg has been recognized, Assistant Chief Burns has been recognized, and firefighter-paramedic Paul Riedel has been recognized. And I just want to point out the caliber of the individuals that serves this township in public safety. Thank you.
And not only you got 2 good PRs.
And we did have a thumb rescue at Station 26. A crew from Mount Healthy had a child in a bit of a predicament. They knew that we had the appropriate resources to remove that child's thumb from that lock. And
A seatbelt lock, correct?
seatbelt lock, correct. So
Without cutting the thumb off.
without even nicking the thumb.
There were thumb savers, and also the touch it, truck it. Taylor was a success?
Yes, absolutely. So,
Good
thank
PR
you.
for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for all the hard work and the quality folks that you have at the department serving the township. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
All right, the next administrative reports are from Chief Ed Cordy in the Police Department.
Chief, welcome back.
I should have just sat up front.
Yep. You need to get your exercise in.
As they walk out, I'll tell you, the board, what Lieutenant Penley let me know, the address at 2864 Houston, but Mr. Robert Johnson was talking about, they have done some tremendous work.
He
of
showed us
fixing-
some pictures,
fixing
yes.
up the house,
Right.
and it's noticeable by the team, so
Okay,
it's
good.
absolutely a ton of work, and they're quite impressed with what they've done so far.
Thank you.
For the month of April, the police department, we responded to 3,541 calls for service, which is an increase of just 1% from last year at this time. We are averaging currently 118 calls per day. Expect that to start to go up here as the summer comes to us. For the month, we conducted 138 traffic stops, made 3 OVI arrests, 75 physical arrests. We had 2 use of forces. Neither of these actually occurred in Colerain Township. We spent some time helping our neighboring police department, Springfield Township, in their time of need when they had a line of duty death, and both of those use of force occurred in Springfield Township. One was the usage of OC, and the other one was a taser deployment, oddly 9 minutes apart from each other. During the month, we did not have any traffic pursuits, and we did open 1 internal investigation. Excuse me, code enforcement. Total of 161 violations, 342 inspections, 106 violations were closed, and 6 were referred to housing court. 17 property maintenance violations and 5 zoning violations. Officer Boyd, 2 litter occasions. He was asked to investigate 26 abandoned vehicles, 3 of which were towed, and 10 were abandoned but did not have any sort of citable issues. He investigated 29 parking complaints, 5 solicitors, and communicated with the public on 42 separate times about their questions and concerns. An update on the police department as a whole: with tonight's consent item, we will be up to 62 officers, which again is the highest we've ever seen. I'm going to say that every time. Highest we've ever had. We're still looking for 7 more. That includes the, as I mentioned before, expected contract that'll be for you in the next meeting. We hope to have the school district contract at the next meeting, and we believe currently the results can be 2 additional school resource officers and 2 additional school safety officers, which we're actively recruiting to fill those positions as we are right now. For the hiring process for 2023, we have 124 total applications. 97 of them have been removed from the process for various reasons. 14 are being actively worked, and we have 10 that we have hired. Once again, Nancy has outdone herself. I know she's watching, so good job, Nance. We were awarded $6,633.58 through the Ohio Law Enforcement Body Armor Program from the Ohio AG's office. We probably could have got more, but we maxed it out. No more was able for us for this year. Any questions, board?
Yeah, go ahead.
You mentioned if you could tell us a little bit more, as you told me last week, about the officers at Northwest School District, that actually the school district is going to pay for those and not us. Just to clarify that for those watching.
100%. The proposal made to the school district was an increase of officers. This was completely funded by the school district. The expectation is to move forward with a contract that would have 2 additional school safety and 2 additional school resource officers.
Which will give the school district a total of?
5 school safety officers and 5 school resource officers and 1 school safety sergeant.
And then?
All paid for by the school district.
Right, and you may or may not know this, but White Oak Middle School, which is in Green, and Montfort Heights, which is in Green, do they have a arrangement with Green Township for a similar thing, or do we?
Local school district, we handle all the.
We go into Green Township, into those buildings?
We have a school safety officer at White Oak right now.
A Colerain officer?
Colerain school safety officer in Green Township at White Oak. And then the school resource officer and the lieutenant go to the feeder schools that don't have a designated school safety or school resource officer, including Montfort Heights, and visits them. One of the additional school safety officers would be someone dedicated to going to all the different schools that does not have one, so they'd get a little bit more attention.
And how much participation is there with St. James, St. John's, Our Lady of Grace? Do they ever call on us for anything?
Quite often they reach out to Sergeant Hustle, and it's just that he's the resource for them if they ever need something. If they call, at the end of the day, we're Colerain Police. So if they call and they need anything from us, we're there for them.
Okay.
So we'll go out to them, but they're, with all the different swatting incidents and things like that going on, we directly reached out to them and let them know, anything you possibly need from us, we're here for you. And
thank you.
Chief, a couple things for you. I reached out a couple times to Chief Bly, and he just said that, I said, look, if you guys need anything, evidently you were on top of that completely. And, it's just, it's proud that you guys stood up and helped Springfield through that tragedy. One thing people might hear when they hear this new increase in officers, and this is a subject you and I have talked a great deal about, and something I really push for, is to get more officers and to get more officers that have experience, and we're seeing that. The statistics show us that I think it's 50 to 60% of officers that will quit in the first 2 years. Was that right, or the first 3 years?
First 5 years.
First 5 years. Yeah, and we're starting to get people. It may not be what they want, and that's fine. And we're getting people, that have, and I consider military as part of that too, because a lot of that is policing. So thank you for doing that. I can't read my own writing. And the other thing that I was significantly concerned about, and Mr. Baker and I talked about this about a week ago, is the onboarding costs. So people oftentimes don't realize that the onboarding costs of training, of finding the candidates, training them, getting them uniforms, going through the whole process, doing background checks. This is pretty expensive and was costing us a significant amount of money. And if we can keep the police here and not have them go somewhere else and not be a kind of like a training ground for other departments, we're going to save money on that end of it. And have we begin to see some of that, I guess, or we?
Tremendous growth in the last, let's see if I can do math real quick, 8 months. We have gone from 47 officers to 62. So we are positive 15.
Good. good. And I think that the statistics are going to bear out that we're going to be facing more and more crime, especially as things in Cincinnati kind of get gentrified and things like that. And we're going to get, things are going to kind of come up the hill. And I want to be there to react, and I appreciate that. The other thing, and I don't think we're there yet, but the other thing that I was concerned about, and, part of the problem is we're still getting these guys and women on the force is overtime. We look like we can start to cut into that here as we start to.
So we actually are starting to feel the difference between what it's like to have some more bodies on the road. We used to mandate overtime, and we were going through the overtime list within about every, 7 to 10 days. Now I'm not sure how quick the turnover is, but I know the emails are nothing like they were back in September.
And that shocked me when I went and spoke to your officers, and I said, well, I thought you wanted all the overtime you could get. And they're like, no, we need some time with our families. I'm like, wow, okay. So hopefully we can begin to cut into that. The other thing that you and I talked about, and I don't know if we're quite there yet, is we see this in the news more and more, and I know you do as part of Citizen Police Academy. I think you have, I don't know, not like an active shooter component, but something that we could perhaps offer to Colerain citizens so that they know what to do if they're put in an occasion like that. It's difficult to talk about, but I think that people have a better chance of surviving if they've thought it out and what they're going to do.
So there's actually a class that's titled for the Citizens Police Academy called Situational Awareness. It's actually taught by Lieutenant Dorfline back here and his crew. And it's a class that we started to talk about just recently last week after we talked about bringing it to a different level and maybe having it held inside this room and having our friend Helen push it out to be able to generate some more folks to come in and actually go through the class. And there's a lot we can incorporate. So it's not just general awareness, it incorporates some principles from even Alice that's taught at schools.
Right.
And the difference between some people will hear run, fight, hide, things like that, but it's all the same basic principles of how to engage and what to do during a horrific incident.
I mean, I never thought that my job as a teacher would be learning how to use a belt as a tourniquet, but that can save somebody's life, and it has saved people's lives, and that kind of stuff is things I don't know that you think about until you think about them. So maybe in the heat of the moment you don't have that. So, all right, I think I'm done bothering you, but again, thank you for all that you're doing, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to thank you. You don't have to go on patrol anymore, but since you brought up Mr. Dean Dorfline, can we bring up so the public can see our beautiful purchase?
She's sleeping right now.
No, she's not. So you got to introduce her.
So this is Raina. We actually named her Sit. We actually named her, my family, with the book and chief. Raina comes from Colerain, so the back end of Colerain with a nail on the end. Raina, that's how we got her name. She is just over 9 months. She's never doodled. She comes with over 950 hours of training from the kennel down in North Carolina. We will be certified as therapy handler and dog. They will not certify her nationally until she's over a year.
Okay.
So she will turn a year in August. She's here every day and every time that I'm here. When we had Officer Owens incident, Chief and I were here at midnight, and I tried to sneak out of the house without waking her up. And then 7 o'clock came, and I knew my family was awake. Went and grabbed her and brought her back. And she's very much breaking down barriers with our officers and just bringing a little bit of joy, I think, to everybody in the building.
Yes.
We are here on a daily basis.
She does relieve some stress for people, doesn't she?
Thank you. And I know that St. Axe took when the tragedy happened at St. James. Well, not at St. James, but the St. James student who's going to be going to Elder next year. St. Axe brought their therapy dog, and it made a huge difference. I mean, it sounds kind of goofy, but we're living in a different world right now.
Absolutely are.
If you saw on the news, I want to get yelled at back from the back room over there. You saw on the news just today, I can't remember which police department it was on, Local 12. They actually had another police department with this exact same concept and what it does and the purpose behind it. So this is a trend that's going throughout the United States. It's actually, we mirrored our program off of Franklin County, Ohio, and they have 3 dogs, and the whole concept is basically just it's a stressful job. It's a rough job, and any way that you can just brings some of that tension down is a good thing for everyone's overall health,
Well,
including for us. And
yeah.
once we get Raina squared away and where she needs to be, and she'll be, I mean, she already interacts with the public as is.
Absolutely,
So she'll
she
be
does.
here for that aspect of the world too. As long as Dean's there, she's there.
Thank you.
Every time you ever see her upset, it's usually because he's not within
Right,
10 feet of her.
I saw her panting in the.
Yes.
the-
She knew he was in
Yeah,
and was trying to get
yes.
to him. So.
Thanks for bringing her in.
Thank you.
See what our money's buying.
All right, up next to follow that tough act is Assistant Administrator Tiffany Mays.
Welcome.
And
Hello.
those watching and in the audience. For the update for public services, we're looking at our park visitations so far this year. And one thing I do want to note to the board is that our traffic counter in Heritage Park broke a couple months ago, and we just received the new one. So that should be installed this week. So we'll have better numbers at our next meeting. Same thing with litter. We're on target and above, actually, with almost a little over 1,100 bags of trash being collected. So our goal is 50, or 25, I think, is our goal. So we're way above that, thanks to the litter guys. So, any questions?
I think Colerain's a lot, and there's still spot litter all the time, but I think we've done a tremendous job in the last few years of sending our people out to clean up, do those spot cleanups. I know I reported a mattress left somewhere not too long ago, and it was gone the next day. And very recently, there was something that you got, was some furniture that was dumped on East Miami River Road. And they got out and got it the next day after I got the complaint on it. So that's not what we're here to do, but somebody's got to clean it up. And Mr. Beck, to you, thank you for helping us get that program started. That's a county road we're out picking up furniture off of, which is one of your roads. But that was kind of our little discussion was, thanks for helping us with that. We'll go out and use it to pick up litter. And if you have another one, we'd love to have it. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's worked out very well, Mr. Beck.
All right, the next administrative report is Director David Miller.
I'm back.
Yay.
I think we can
Did you run Sunday?
stay on track.
Yep.
I ran Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Yeah.
Call me
The
crazy.
races.
Yeah, it was wild. Never run in thunderstorms. I missed the torrential floods in Covington. I just got out of Covington when that hit. So
Oh, wow.
it was amazing. So I wanted to follow up just on the development report relative to Mr. Robert Johnson's public comment period on the demolition program that we're under. So the home at 8808 Nabita is down. They're just got a couple more things to finish up there. The 2864 Houston was the only one that was left. When our contractor showed up, there was apparent work that was underway. And so that's when the process began to get in touch with the owner. While I was on site, spoke to Miss Ruby Johnson. And so got the story, got in touch with her son, Robert. So we've had numerous conversations, and we have been to the site as well. There has been significant work done. He mentioned the list of projects that are already done with windows and roof and lots of dumpster refuge that's been hauled away. Repairs on the house and the kitchen, things that have been ordered. So, given that the board has previously authorized the demolition of this property, it's not unlike properties that we have addressed as well in a similar way, in that 9929 Capstan, as you know, was purchased at sheriff's auction, and we circled back with the new owner, came to an agreement on a timeline, and we were able to, I think, come to a proper resolution on that. I do believe that they are on track to be able to repair the home. It's not in as bad a shape as Capstan, to be honest. That they could get it done in the timeline that he has shared, 2 to 3 months, and then they're going to move from Reynoldsburg here, a place for his mom to live as well. So my recommendation on this would be for us to have a meeting with the township administrator and Mr. Johnson, the new owner, and discuss what that timeline looks like, what his commitment is, and then bring that back to you at the next meeting to see if you would like to consider putting a pause on that demolition.
Do you need action from us for that, or?
Sorry, I'm not necessarily asking for that tonight, but that would be my recommendation, just to give them assurance while they're still here.
Yeah, I think our request is if you all wanted to provide direction to us to work through.
I think in all fairness, we should do the exact same contract and timeline and bond issues as we did with the Capstan owners, just to keep everything equal.
Then can you make that part of your discussion with Mr. Johnson?
We can make that part of that. Yep.
Yep.
Okay, I think we're all in agreement with the same thing. Keep everything. Since this has happened, once again, we're going to have to find a way we can get these demolition orders to the proper chains of command.
I think it just, again, when the contractor showed up for the demo work,
Right.
The owner was already there working. So,
Yeah, so,
that's all I have.
okay, thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you, Board. For my administrative report, I was going to address some of the comments and questions from the prior meeting. Kicking things off, there was a comment and question related to what Plattenberg does for the township. Several different items. So last year, they assisted with our bond issuance postings. There are a lot of in and outs that have to go on the accounting side related to cash that never actually hits our books whenever you buy and sell bonds. So they helped with that. We had some issues with our Rumpke TIF account and the way that the cash is held at the trustee level. So not meaning you all as trustees, but the bank trustee that holds those dollars. They worked on leases from Huntington related to police and cruisers and how that needs to be accounted for. There were several new GASB regulations that they provided guidance on. They prepared our year-end statements for the CIC. They prepared our year-end statements for the township and submitted all those documents to the state of Ohio. Beyond that, as we look into the future, they will likely be involved in any amendments to our 2021 or 2022 year-end financial statements. Usually throughout the audit, the auditor finds something that they ask us to reclassify. Last go around, they asked us to reclassify our EMS revenue not as a fee, but as a charge for service. So the auditor finds times like that where they ask us to go back and amend what we have. Lighting assessments were brought up. Currently, there is one person that has a small portion of their salary charged to the Lighting District Fund. That is our accounts payable person that actually handles processing all of those bills on an annual basis. As was stated tonight, this was something where we went back and looked into the question of why there was a fund balance in the Lighting District Fund. And the best that we could discern is that those administrative fees that were related to the setup of these funds were always charged with the assessment. They were never charged back to the general fund. The general fund is where all the mailings were issued, where all of the work was done to actually get the public hearings in place and the the legal notices to the Enquirer and other groups. So there were several dollars in expenses that the general fund had been incurring. So when we were looking at the sizable fund balance that existed there, we explored items with our law director, and through legal opinion, it was determined that we could charge a portion of these fees back to the fund. So that explains that. The public record that was brought in, there was a request for which employee was paid for out of that fund. And so the record that supported which employee was paid was the record that showed where all of our employees are paid out of. We don't necessarily modify public records as part of records requests. So that's why there are over 300 employees listed on that, because it accounts for every employee and which funds they are accounted to. Nuisance abatements, there was a question about whether or not there's a reconciliation. Unfortunately, the county does not provide us with a parcel by parcel who paid and who didn't. As we are aware, going through this process with 9929 Capstan, there are numerous times where we cut the grass, we send down the assessments, and the person may not pay their property tax bill. Therefore, the township does not get those dollars back. In that case, we got those dollars back, or we'll get those dollars back, I guess, with the second half settlement, because those back taxes were just finally paid a couple of months ago. So there is not a direct reconciliation because we're not provided with a parcel by parcel detailed list from the county that says who paid their special assessments and who did not. And then finally, there was a question about why we amend appropriations. Oftentimes there are things that pop up that we are not aware of that show up throughout the year. So, when we are building our budgets, we put in our best estimate at what things are going to cost. For example, radios and tasers were two that we did not expect to increase as much as they did, and that's why we had to come back and ask for amended appropriations. Other times we have things like accounting exercises that the state or other groups ask us to do. So that's part of some of the items that you saw on the agenda. And with that, that'll conclude my administrative report.
Okay, just for the public, Plattenberg is a CPA agency, correct? And we do not have a certified public accounting on our payroll.
That is correct.
So that saves us that salary and benefits, correct?
That is correct. We do not have a
And we
CPA.
use Plattenberg to audit us, so we can't audit ourselves. So we have to pay for those audits also.
So the audit is actually done by the state of Ohio,
Right.
and we pay them. Plattenberg prepares all of our statements
Yes.
for the auditor as an independent third party.
Yes, just to clarify what other things that Plattenberg do for us. Okay, thank you.
So I had some questions with regard to, first, this is an easy question. I was talking to Dana from Waycross. Can we have her present the summer program, maybe one of the next meetings
Which summer program?
for film? Teen Film Camp.
Yeah, we could get that on an agenda.
Yeah. Yep. And it could be like a voice from above. So the other thing Ms. Moore brought up, it is fascinating to me because there really isn't a process. I've had people say, and this is probably a Mr. Solomon question, people say, well, I want that entered into the record. And this paper gets passed all the way around, and I don't know where it goes sometimes. Do other townships have a process for when somebody says, I want it entered in the record? And let's say somebody wants to put something in the record that's inappropriate. Is there, we have a free speech issue, but if I wanted to put something in that was, let's say, I don't know, hostile or profane or something like that.
I mean, the minutes don't necessarily capture every word that's spoken at a meeting. And they're pretty much generally supposed to just give a summary of what occurs. Ultimately, the minutes are voted on by the trustees and the legislative body, and I think theirs are the ones who ultimately have the control and the final say.
So well, first I'm asking about just something that says, in addition, that, we've got pictures up here, and we've gotten, I don't know, a couple other things. Mr. Johnson brought these two things up. Is this, I guess my question is this part of the record? Do we have a process for dealing with these? I mean, I take them home and I put them in, I have a big stack of them at home.
I give mine to Mr. Baker.
So maybe that's a Mr. Baker question, and
I don't know, when I give them to you, but you keep them in a file.
Typically, if there are items that were either given to me or given to the board in any particular meeting, I would add that when I scan that into the system, which puts it online.
Right.
I scan those in there and include them.
Yes. So there's your answer.
all right, so is there a process for somebody, because I know things have gotten missed. What does it mean to be in the record, I guess? Because I think there's a shot, for instance, these pictures, they might get mixed. Do they really belong in the record, or is they just?
Like I said, the minutes are not exact record. It's not like a trial where there's deposition testimony and every exhibit is either entered or not entered. It's a summary of what occurs, and it doesn't have every word, every exhibit. But I mean, it's just supposed to have be a summary.
All right, and with the permission of the chair, I told Ms. Moore that she could then, I said, let's put this off. I want to bring it up during.
And I want to ask a quick question. Is this something we're in litigation on right now and should be discussed?
Not to my knowledge.
We're not currently in litigation related to meeting minutes.
Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Could I just say, the documents that I gave you, I did not ask they be put into the record. I gave Mr. Baker just a list of what they were and asked that that be added So I did not ask for all those records.
Not the documents, the list of the documents.
Just a list.
Okay.
And it wasn't even all of them. It was just what I wanted to make sure got in the record.
So when it
So-
comes to meeting minutes, as Scott stated, there's an action by the board at every meeting to accept those minutes, that you guys vote yes or no on them. You all can take action at any time to amend prior minutes if you desired as a board. I'd recommend, that's where I know, it sounds like Dan, you usually send comments to Jeff, so that's one way to try to get in front of those is for you all, if you have specific items, to work directly with the fiscal officer to get those addressed beforehand. But it's not unheard of. There have been times, I believe, in the past where we have amended minutes for one reason or another. And that's where, if there is something that you all would like to include, I think that's the proper avenue, is to request an amendment of minutes.
And it's not necessary to amend the minutes when it's a typo or a misspelling. That's assumed, right, under the ORC. That's
Yeah, I don't think there's necessary formal motions that need to occur if it's
So
you missed the space.
Okay, so Ms. Moore aside, I'm Joe Citizen here, and I'm like, you know what? I think this should be in the minutes. What is my process? I say to Mr. Baker, is the fiscal officer, I think this should have been included, and then he provides an explanation and says yay or nay, or this is how it's included?
Or should the official record just be for business of the meeting?
I think that's up to you all to how to decide how you want to handle it. I think there's different ways. There's no set in stone statutory way that it has to occur. Again, it comes to the discretion, I think, of the legislative authority to determine what constitutes the minutes and a proper summary of what occurs at their meetings.
Well, I'm just talking about.
As long as there are minutes taken.
Okay, right. I'm talking about a redress if the citizen's unhappy. Maybe that's something Mr. Baker says, all right, this is what we're going to do. They come to me. I mean, I don't know if there's a process that you already use, I guess, or.
For what it's worth, I mean, if the minutes are approved by you, then it would take a request by you to amend any minutes. I won't do that on my own.
No.
Right.
It would have to be voted on by the board.
Right, these are the ones that Ms. Moore was talking about weren't yet approved, I don't think, right?
Right. Yeah, they were approved.
They were, okay.
And I
So then
didn't.
it would mean the amendment, okay. I
And-
just want to make sure I'm sorry.
Okay, and in the March meeting, there weren't all the documents attached, and the list that I gave him was not in there. And that's all that I asked, that it be provided in the record. And what would you do if something was wrong in the minutes? Wouldn't you want to correct them? And I'm saying that at that meeting, what it says that I said is totally wrong. I never said why we need Plattenberg, and several other things. So if you want accurate minutes and somebody can show you where it's wrong, I think you should amend them.
Okay, I understand your point. I don't know that it's going to be like word for word. Right.
No, I don't.
Yeah, again, Ms. Moore keeps talking about the record. The minutes are not a record of everything that occurs.
The
They are
filming is a record.
summary of what occurs.
But it is a permanent record.
Right. A permanent or a summary.
But it's a record. I
Okay.
mean, have you seen all the minute books?
Yeah,
We have-
yep.
Okay, well, those are all permanent records of what has happened at meetings.
Okay, I wanted to understand a little bit more in the process. I'm sorry for digging down in the minutia, but I just wanted to make sure that that there is a process, because there's a process for us. We could say, Mr. Baker, hey, I want that changed, but then again, we can't have 60,000 people saying, hey, change this. So but it sounds like it stops here. Gotcha.
And I doubt you'll have 60,000 people.
Right, I know. I'm taking the
You got one.
outliers.
You got one.
Gotcha. All right, I'm going to look at that again, and then I will email you later in the week on that. I just wanted to understand the process. I felt it needed a bigger, broader discussion.
Okay, so should I expect the board to make a motion on approving those changes or
Well, I
not
can't speak for
approving?
those two, but I'm going to reread them now. Part of me was I didn't understand the process of how it would work. Who do you go to first? So I'm going to look at it, and then based on the idea that it's a summary, and it's not exact. I'm probably going to go back and watch it and compare what's written with what's said there, because I get the sense that what you've said is a lot of specific detail, and I don't know the level to which the law requires that. I think.
And I was just going to send the list of the 5 items or whatever that I asked him to put in the record, but then when I saw how far off it was, I thought, well, put the other stuff in there too.
Okay, I'll be in touch with you probably late this weekend or something, and follow up on it if it's okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Sorry, I didn't mean to complicate matters. I just want to understand the process of.
If there are no other questions, that concludes the administrative reports.
Okay. So trustee reports, who wants to go first?
I'll go, and thank you for bearing with me. I'm playing a little bit wounded tonight because it's the end of the year and I catch every disease that teenagers have. Maybe I should rephrase that. The bacteria that they bring. We met with the solid waste committee. This has become an interesting look at how local government and intergovernment politics works. We had the vote on the tipping fees, I guess, last Monday. And towards the last week, this became such a labor-intensive thing. I was getting calls at 7 a.m. all the way up to 10 p.m. about the tipping fees in the solid waste plan. I've never spent so much time looking at a solid waste plan and tipping fees. What I tried to do, and the vote lost, is that we have, just to recall, Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 tipping fees. Those are waste disposal fees. Tier 1 is inside Hamilton County. Those are set at $1 per ton. Tier 3 are outside the state. Those are set at $1 a ton, and they have to be set at that way because of interstate commerce. The Supreme Court ruled a long time ago on that. And then you have Tier 2. Those are inside the state, but outside the county, which is essentially outside the solid waste district. Those are at $2 a ton. It was my effort to raise those to $2.75 a ton under the idea that, hey, guess what? These are people that aren't Hamilton County residents, and they're bringing their trash here, and they should pay more. Because I'd gladly pay more to take my trash somewhere else. And it had some broad-based support, and what I wanted to do is that would create about $1 million a year. I wanted to redistribute that to the individual communities based upon population at a prorated rate, and have them use that to work on recycling, trash reduction, littering, things like that. Well, that lost 2 to 4 to 1. Kind of interesting because the city of Cincinnati was with me right till the end until they abstained. And the Sierra Club supported it. So I got the Sierra Club and almost the city of Cincinnati, but the county kind of said, no, we want to do this. And what I took from it, their plan is over the next 4 or 5 years is to develop a siting strategy where they're going to put it, and a program for using organic waste. I always forget the term. Composting. Which I said it can't come here ever. And the thing that kind of bothered me at the end of the meeting is that several of the members that voted no on the plan that I advanced said, well, we think that Tier 1 and Tier 3 tipping fees should be up for debate to be increased as well, which kind of left me sideways because the Tier 2 tipping fees have been at the same rate since 1988 at $2. That $2 is worth like $5 now. Based in right now, 53% comes from in-state, out of county. Right now, they're turning their back on at least $2 million a year. And if you go all the way back to 1988, $2 million a year is a lot. And if you extract it out into the point where it's expected that the landfill, and I'm talking about Rumpke, which is down here, which is the source of most of this, or where it lands. If you extrapolate that, that's going to be somewhere between the 28 to 35 year range, the usable life of that. That's an additional whole lot of money that's being, and I don't get it, because I heard a lot of things like, we don't want to increase taxes on our citizens. And I'm like, well, they're not your citizens. We're Hamilton County. These are other counties. And by the way, counties that have grown in population, upwards to 30 and 40% over the last 15 and 20 years. So when that fee was decided, some of these counties were a lot smaller. So I was voted down, but I'm going to keep fighting on that. I just want to get a quick, I meant to ask Mr. Weckback, Joseph and sidewalks.
Yes, so we submitted a grant application last week to Hamilton County for approximately half of the cost of that program. We're working to submit another grant application to SORTA for the other half of that project. And in the meantime, we're working right now with the design firm to draw up a contract so we can get design and hopefully right-of-way done. Design and right-of-way would be 100% at township cost. Most of these grants don't actually cover any of those charges.
Okay, just wanted to get an update on that. And I don't know if the chief thinks this is good or bad, if Chief Cordy, but I volunteered, and I think he took me up on my volunteer. I'm going to come in and look at the stats and use some of my graduate level statistical analysis and see if I can see any patterns and trends with crime using some advanced math things. It's something that I did when I was in graduate school to predict potential IED explosions in parts of, for instance, Iraq and Sadr City. I did a thing with one of the vendors to the military for that. So hopefully, I don't know if, as you can tell, I got one big theme here, and it's policing it up, because I think that we need to kind of maintain what we have. I think that's it. Thank you.
Sure. Since the last meeting, I went to, there's a small part of our township that buys electricity through the Butler Regional Electric Co-op, and their annual meeting was, I guess it was April 27th, and I did go to that. They were kind enough to invite us there. The director of the Ohio Co-op Association gave a great explanation of what's going on with base demand or base provision of electric, and pointed out that as recently as 2009, there were 23 coal-fired electric generating stations in Ohio, and just because of changes in environmental laws, we are down to 4, and that is pretty scary to think we have taken that much base supply, and base meaning the electrics that's always there, not the surge electric like some of these natural gas plants that can fire up and run a little quicker, or solar that only is effective 12 hours a day without a battery. That's scary to think we've lost so much of our base load of electric, and one of the other presentation is people are using more and more, and I was talking to one of our Northbrook residents who told me that most of the houses in Northbrook were wired with 60 amp service, and most of them would not accommodate an electric car charger. So it was pretty interesting to hear the presentation at Butler Regional Electric Co-op, and that would kind of segue into, I know we've probably all gotten calls about our electric aggregation program. I think I heard that Duke has applied to raise their rate starting in June to 10.7 cents, and we are at 8. Where are we at on the electric?
We are at $6 and change. I can't remember exactly what it is.
It's 6.8 something.
Yes, because you all approved me to sign a contract for under 7.5.
Right. Yes.
Right, and they are, which is understandable because of the federal laws that have put in. The generation of electricity has over the past couple years become a lot more expensive, and I'm glad I'm on the aggregation program, and it's going to get pretty tough for not just homeowners but for businesses also. To address one of the comments about separate levies, I've often thought about that. That is an accounting process, and yes, it is easier to pass police and fire levies than other levies. But I would like to add, I think another one of our main functions is roads. That speaker mentioned that police and fire are why we're here. The original setup of the township form in government in Ohio, as I've mentioned before, trustees used to be called road trustees, and that is one of our obligations, is to maintain the roads also. There was another animated speaker here this evening that resorted to some name calling. I've been called a lot of things. I've never been called that ever, and I think that really dilutes a lot of the rest of what that person had to say. When you have to resort to name calling, that tells me that you've run out of arguments and you've gone down that road. There was a comment about mosaic potholes. I'm not familiar with that. I don't know if that's something one of our other departments is doing. I don't know if the county does that. We certainly haven't gotten that lead from you. It's something I could learn more about. And I'll mention one other thing. I do get a lot of calls. I always mention my number, 404-3057, but I got an interesting one over on Ben Hill Drive off of Cheviot Road. I don't know if that person contacted either of you, but that person complained about maybe a 20-foot section of sidewalk that's kind of blown up. And I went over there Sunday and looked at it, and sure enough, it's pretty blown up. And I referred it on to our code enforcement. And I did a little bit more research, and that house is owned by a person that doesn't live in Colerain Township, and it's a rental house, but they're claiming the owner occupancy credit. So I ran that person's name through the auditor's site, and this person actually owns 14 properties in Hamilton County. 2 of them are on Ben Hill, and that person's claiming the owner occupancy credit on 4 of those 14 properties. And the owner occupancy credit on that one house was $62. Well, I've always contended we're never getting 100% collection on our taxes. And I don't know if it was an oversight when he started renting it out, but I think there's a form you have to fill out if you're claiming the owner occupancy credit. In the past, I had a great relationship with Auditor Rhodes. I would send those down to him, and he would send these owners out a letter saying, you need to get your property straightened out. It's apparent that you don't live there because you're claiming it in 3 or 4 places. I'm looking to establish that same relationship with the new auditor. Mr. Jarvis from the auditor's office was here a few weeks ago, and I have reached out to him. So I'm sure that Kathy and Matt get just as many calls on all sorts of topics, but that particular one, Matt, would fall under your rental registration thing you were pushing. That's a guy with 14 houses in the county, taking non-business credits and owner occupancy credits. And I think when you first started here, you ran a list, and we found maybe 600 or some houses that didn't match up with the name that was listed on it. And you take 600 times $62, or a lot of them are more than that. That's a relatively inexpensive house comparatively over there. You're starting to talk some real money that's not being paid in. And I think if everybody paid the taxes they owe, there'd be a lot less asking for more. So that was my experience on Ben Hill. When we get down to the public safety, I did get a call from a lady about 10432 Owl Creek, but I'll bring that up when we get to that part of the resolution. So nothing else, Kathy.
Okay, well, we finally had some nice sunshine, and I love going through our township and seeing everybody planting their flowers and making Colerain Township a beautiful place to live. Thank you for those homeowners and other people out there trying to make Colerain Township beautiful. With that being said, the CCA, which is George Isford, their group, they are looking for volunteers. They're asking for 1 hour a month to help clean up Colerain Township, because there are still those people that keep littering, and so please stop. So George Isford's number is 513-543-3407. And like he said, if you Cub Scouts, Girl Scouts, 1 hour, 8 o'clock on a Saturday morning. And with that, with composting, we were on WVXU for our new composting program, so you can look that up on our Facebook to see what that's all about. And also, another memorable thing that happened to Colerain Township this week is we have been selected as one of the pilot areas for Metro's new on-demand service called Metro Now. This will give residents a cheaper alternative to rideshare services and will offer door-to-door pickup and drop-off for predetermined areas in the Metro zone for Colerain. Metro just had one of their new buses up at the Senior Center yesterday, so people could take a look at and ask. And also, the Citizens Police Academy are having Bunko, I believe it's at the Community Center, on May 20th. Other big news, the goats are coming back to the Colerain Park on May 23rd. And on Friday, June 2nd, will be our first concert in the park. It's the Tailor Made Band, and we are going to try something new, and we're going to serve some adult beverages that night. So please come and have fun and be safe. And the Senior Citizen is having a Senior Wellness Expo on May 25th. So
That's all I have.
All right, and then next on the agenda is new business, and the first several items are from the police department, and that is Chief Ed Cordy. Chief, I hope your leg didn't fall asleep on you back there.
Same place as last time. There we go. All right. Item A, resolution declaring nuisance and ordering abatement at the following properties: 6662 Daleview Road, 2662 Niagara Street, 3353 Lapland Drive, and 10432 Owl Creek Road. Recommend adoption of the resolution.
I motion we approve the resolution declaring nuisance and ordering abatement at those 4 properties.
I'll second that.
Discussion?
And I will make the same comment when we get down to the automobiles. I did get a call from a resident on 104 up the street from that, and that resident told me that she wanted to know what was going on down there. We have not been there to do anything yet, but she said the cars had been towed and a substantial amount of cleanup had happened. But I think we still need to go inspect it to see what the current part of it is. But we're not going to start charging against that property until we go down there and actually do something.
We have to go through this process, then it goes.
I
through-
understand.
Yes. No, nothing will be charged until the actual work is done.
Right.
I mean, half the time we have our grass cutters actually go there and realize that there's nothing to do and leave.
Right, and when we get to the thing with the automobile on item I, we don't send a record down there. Somebody will go down there and go, oh, these are gone.
That'll be inspected by
Okay,
Officer Boyd.
that's fine. That covers both of those items.
Yes.
Any more discussion from you?
No.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Item B, resolution declaring a junk motor vehicle at 2565 Royal Glen Drive. Recommend adoption of the resolution.
I motion we approve the resolution declaring a junk motor vehicle at 2565 Royal Glen Drive.
I'll second.
Discussions?
None.
None.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Item C, resolution declaring a junk motor vehicle at 3171 Niagara Street. Recommend adoption of the resolution.
I'll motion for the adoption of a resolution declaring a junk motor vehicle at 3171 Niagara Street.
I'll second.
No discussion from me.
None.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Item D, resolution declaring a junk motor vehicle at 3225 Deschler Drive. Recommend adoption of the resolution.
I'll motion to declare a junk motor vehicle on 3225 Deschler Drive.
I'll second.
No discussion from me.
Discussion?
None.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Item E, resolution declaring a junk motor vehicle at 8671 Eagle Creek Road. There are 2 vehicles on this address. First one being a 1997 tan Chevy van, second being a 1996 red and silver Chevy Silverado. Recommend adoption of the resolution.
A motion to declare junk motor vehicles at 8671 Eagle Creek Road.
I'll second.
No discussion.
No discussion?
None.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Item F, resolution declaring a junk motor vehicle at 9637 Dunraven Drive. Recommend adoption of the resolution.
I motion that we declare a junk motor vehicle at 9637 Dunraven Drive.
Second.
No discussion?
None.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Item G, resolution declaring a junk motor vehicle at 9810 Norcrest Drive. Recommend adoption of the resolution.
A motion to adopt the resolution to declare a junk motor vehicle at 9810 Norcrest Drive.
I'll second. No
No
discussion?
discussion from me.
None.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Item H, resolution declaring a junk motor vehicle at 9936 Lower Linda Drive. 2 vehicles at this residence, first being a 1999 black Dodge Ram, second being a 2001 black Honda Accord. Recommend adoption of the resolution. That address should be familiar.
Yes, I was going to say, that looks really 14 bins familiar.
I motion declare a junk motor vehicle at 9936 Laurel Linda Drive, two junk motor vehicles, 9936 Laurel Linda Drive.
I'll second.
No discussion.
None.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
And item I, resolution declaring a junk motor vehicles at 10432 Owl Creek Road. 4 vehicles here. First being a 1995 blue Ford Mustang. Second being an unknown year black Acura MDX. Third, 1997 black Chevy Silverado. Fourth being a 1995 blue Ford Mustang. 2 different vehicles. And recommend adoption of the resolution.
I motion that we approve the resolution declaring 4 junk motor vehicles at 10432 Owl Creek.
I'll second. No discussion.
And my discussion would be that resident said that they had been gone, and she also mentioned that there's some sort of family dispute down there, so that's what we have you guys for.
Yeah.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Item J. This is the motion to authorize the township administrator to purchase portable radios. This is one of the items where we needed to have an appropriation change. There's an entire story behind this, and if you humor me for a second, I'll give you the short end of it. In 2014, we purchased 55 APX 6000 radios from Motorola. We've tried different radios over the years, Kenwoods, different items like that. None of them seem to work in the hills of Colerain Township. As you go towards Blue Rock and East Miami, you'll lose signal. You cannot get in, cannot get out. Motorola are the only radios that work. Motorola knows they're the only radios that work and have a pretty good market share of what's going on here. The radio, as I mentioned earlier, have gone up roughly $1,000 in the last few years. And we were told this, it would have been in March of this year, the rep from Mobilecom came to us and let us know that Motorola is no longer going to service our 55 radios that we purchased in 2014. And it's time for us to move to the next generation of radios, or if they break, we will not be able to have them repaired. So we've developed a 5-year plan over the next 5 years to replace those 55 radios. We'll do 11 per year. You'll notice that this one here has a total of 19 radios. That's just to increase for our growth that we're expected to have, including the 4 from the school district. This purchase would include 19 total radios. 7 radios additional will be added to the department's overall count. That's actually 8 for additional authorized officers. Additional 11 radios to be purchased as part of the 5-year replacement. Each radio is $5,287.79. The entire purchase would be, it's in your packet, but it's $100,468.11. Recommend adoption of the motion.
As a quick reminder, this is not the first time that Motorola has done this. They've end-of-lifed our equipment before. I think the last time they did this at this type of scale was maybe 2015, 2016. So it's not unheard of for them to do it. Unfortunately, they're as close to a monopoly as you can get on these types of products. So they know that they've got that, and they've used that against us before.
So do we get any kind of guarantee that they won't next generation in 6 or 8 months?
So I'll share a story of my time when I was at the county. They bought a new, what's called the 800 megahertz system. So it's kind of the brains of the 911 system. They guaranteed that that would not be end-of-life for 15 years. So the county at the time sold bonds. 10 years in, they get a call from Motorola saying, hey, I know we guaranteed this, but we're end-of-lifing your equipment. So even if they have a guarantee, I don't know that I would believe that it would follow through for 8, 10 years, whatever it is.
Knowing that this is a possibility, that's why we're developing a reoccurring plan to be able to never have 55 at a time again.
Smart.
So odds are, by year 4 or 5 of this program, we may have different radios for different officers. And that's, hopefully they're just slightly different, not majorly different, but we're trying to game plan so that we're not stuck holding 55 radios that don't work.
Is there anybody close to becoming a competitor?
The closest we had was Kenwood, and they were terrible. There's no better way to describe them. We were sending officers out with that the radios would work maybe 60, 70% of the time.
Were they using their cell phones, their personal cell phones
They were
then?
having to do anything they could do to
Gosh.
just get out or just have no radio connectivity and just hope that
Yeah,
they
and
didn't need
Brown
any
Week
help.
Road, that whole area there. Yeah.
It's not the only area, but yeah,
Right.
it's bad.
Well, tell them to quit doing that. Motorola, tell them we're done. We don't want to do.
Do we need to get some more cell towers?
All right. That's it, other than Motorola, knock it off.
Okay. You want a motion to authorize?
We had a motion, didn't we, in a second?
Yeah, we just had a discussion, okay.
Oh, I'll motion to authorize the township administrator to purchase portable radios.
I'll second.
No discussion. Thank you for
Thanks, Ed.
explaining that last week also. It's in the agenda. They're online.
Mr. Cordy did read it into the record earlier as well.
I can read it again, and I did it once, but I can do it again. Each radio is $5,287.79. Total purchase of $100,468.01. Sure.
Right, we're-
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Board, the last item in public safety will be presented by Chief Alan Walls.
Wow.
Good evening. I have one item for this evening. I have a motion authorizing the township administrator to execute a contract with Vogelful Fire Equipment for the purchase of a fire engine for a cost of $779,782 and 0 cents. We recommend adoption of the motion. Just a couple of quick things. That cost does include a savings of nearly $32,000 for paying now instead of upon delivery. The build-out and delivery time is about 2.3 years. So when that truck would arrive in 2025, it will replace a 32-year-old 1993 E1 pumper.
And I'll motion to authorize the township administrator to execute the contract for the purchase of a fire engine for $779,782 to get it to the floor so we can ask some questions.
I'll second.
Okay, discussion.
So we have bought other trucks from, and I realize it's a very unique piece of equipment. What's our relationship with Vogelpool?
So we've purchased through Vogelholt before. In fact, the majority of our apparatus is purchased through Emergency One or E1 in Ocala, Florida. The last two pumpers that we were bought were made or purchased through Rosenbauer. However, Rosenbauer and Pierce came over what we had budgeted for. E1 came under. Vogelpool is in northern Kentucky, and their service, generally speaking, is spot on. And we have quick and easy access to them.
Typically, what is the life of the pumper?
So, just to be transparent here, generally speaking, looking at standards, at about the 10-year mark, they should go out of service, kept for about 5 years in a reserve status. However, with our fleet maintenance program, currently what we have in stock here is two trucks that are 32 years old, one that is 31 years old, and 3 that are 23 years old. In addition, we have a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old vehicle. So the 32-year-old is for training. One of the other 32-year-olds and 31-year-old is for reserve apparatus in case one of the frontline vehicles goes out of service. So then we have a 23-year-old, a 23-year-old, a 23-year-old, and a 10 and a 7 in service. So we routinely keep our trucks in the neighborhood of 25 years.
What happens to that pumper then when the new one comes in?
The 1993 E1 Hush will be sold or scrapped.
And one of our citizens comment about the fire trucks going out on calls. What other facilities does this particular truck have to operate on a call?
It'll have anything and everything that it needs to put out fires, to respond to cardiac arrests, to go to extrications, to It's a multi-purpose vehicle.
Yes, I just wanted to clarify that's not just a pumper truck, it's a multi-purpose. Okay.
And that does include the undercoating.
It does include an undercoating.
Is there any warranty? Extended
One of the other questions that I had asked the other day was, and there's another township that's not too far from us that purchased a fire truck and it did not fit in their firehouse. Where will this be stationed? And will it fit in our new buildings and will it fit in our older buildings?
It will fit in every building, and in fact, it will be assigned to one of the new stations. So it will go to Station 102.
New station, new truck.
So it will fit,
It will fit.
not like the other township where theirs didn't fit.
It will fit.
Okay. That's
And we
why
are
I-
paying, point out, we are paying cash.
We are paying cash up front, which will save us about $33,000. It's 32 and some change.
I don't have any other comments.
Okay, thank you.
No, I have none.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you.
Jeff, before we get into the next item, I wonder if the board would consider going to item 11, which is old business, so that the county engineer has been sitting here at the meeting, and I didn't know if you guys would consider putting him on now so he can get on his way. I'm sure he has quite a day every day. And
So I'll motion to move, to amend the agenda to set old business,
for the next item,
for the next item.
I'll second.
and no discussion. Is that okay, Eric? Because I see you're enjoying our meeting, but so I guess you need to vote on the amendment. Jeff?
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
And Mr. Beck is our county engineer, and I think he does a fine job, and I'm glad that you've come to visit us here in Colerain Township, Eric.
Well, thank you for having me. I've enjoyed it. It's been very educational.
It's better than anything else on television, so.
And I'm here at your pleasure, so I'm here to answer any questions you might have. I understand you had some questions about our subdivision regulations.
Yes. I don't know if, I always have questions about everything.
Sure, Matt, go ahead.
So we're talking about, and we had this issue with another subdivision, and I think that we got a little sideways on it because we voted no, which doesn't really mean anything, because we wanted you guys to come out and take a look at some of the issues that we had. And we voted no, and it got passed through anyway, and you guys came out, but it was irrelevant at that point because it had already been passed through. The specific thing we're talking about tonight is Dunlop Grove. Grove. And the concern that I have, and I think, I won't speak for the other two, but I think they probably have too, because they've indicated in open meetings, is that there's 64 condos going to be built?
Yes, there are going to be 66 total units. I think 15 as of this date have been built. Several others, though, are in the permitting process as we speak.
Okay, and I think that they're way ahead on selling them, so I anticipate that they'll probably do that. The issue that we had about accepting the road now is that if you're still building, another 50 or 40, 48.
20%.
Yeah, another 48 units that we're going to have all these heavy trucks over the road, and it's going to continue, and it's going to do damage to the road, and we're going to be left with that bill. So I think for at least me, are we a little bit early with that, I guess, and what is the process?
The regulations have been in effect since the 90s that have a 3-year time limit, and they can the developer can ask for a 1-year extension. The purpose of that is Colerain Township in the past, as have other townships, have had developments before we put that in place that would sit for 10, 15, 20 years. The developer would disappear, and all that would be left would be the bond that was originally set, which wouldn't be enough to do any of the repairs. And there was nobody to really do those repairs. It ended up falling on the township, or the street didn't get accepted as a public street. So the purpose of this, the developer, the township, and the county all know going in that from the time you sign that agreement, you have 3 years to get the street up to public acceptance. And I understand that, yes, if it's not all built out, there still will be construction traffic on it, but the street should be built to standards that it can handle that.
Okay. Up to you guys.
I mean, our question was, what was the percentage of the development? So now it's just, we're talking about the years when the developer applies for that, so.
That's correct.
That's,
We've never had anything in our regulations that were based on percentages of homes built or units built in the development.
I think that was one of our big questions.
Correct.
So if we were to approve this tonight and it's up for approval or denial, that starts the clock on a 1-year warranty on the road?
That is correct.
And
Yes,
I would
the
think
1-year
at the
bond.
end of a year, there's 40 more units to be built. I don't think they're going to be completed in a year's time.
With the economy the way it is now, that's entirely possible, yes.
And we have had some problems with streets that are, 5 or 10 years old that have needed major repairs. And, I would expect them to last, much longer than 5 or 10 years. And we have streets that are 50 years old that have been waiting for their chance. And, with another street that this came up with a couple years ago, we did vote not to accept it, so there was a record. So when those homeowners start calling us and saying, hey, my street's falling apart, I mentioned at that meeting, it's on the list for 2043 to be resurfaced. Because it's not fair to some of our older neighborhoods that have been waiting patiently for years and years to get their street done, to move.
I couldn't agree with you more,
move a
Mr.
new
Unger.
Okay.
On the flip side, if we don't go through this process, it becomes a private drive. You have winter operations where nobody's plowing snow, nobody's maintaining it. It's a street that the fire and police have to service, but it may not get snow and ice treatment. Because it's private.
And I think we've privately contracted with 1 or 2 of those to run our plow truck down the street to clear it off. I appreciate you coming out. So that's been our concern, and our Public Works administrator's sitting off to your right, and while she's kind of new here, I'm sure she's heard enough from us about it already. And I mean, what do we do? What do we do with these? I don't want to have that get finished out in the next 5 years, and in 2030, one of the residents calling us and saying, there's been this big rut in the street for the last 3 years, and when are you going to fix it? And gee, you're on the list, but you're down at the far end of the list. So that's kind of what our issue is.
I understand. This won't help this situation, but we are currently in the process of reviewing and updating our subdivision manual. Once we start doing that, you will receive that. Public Works will receive that for comments, review. So, we will definitely look at any changes that you might want to suggest in that. But this is the regulations that were in place when this development started. So that is the regulation that we need to follow to be consistent with what we're doing with the rest of the townships in the county.
Well, I appreciate you coming out to our little corner of the world and visiting with us. And, I think you and I personally and you and the township have had a great relationship for years. And you've been with Hamilton County for how long now?
34 years.
Right, and you've made your way up to engineer, and congratulations on that. And I know you've probably know 10,000 stories about every road in the county, and one of the things that's going to come up next is I see you're making a big improvement out on East Miami River Road. So thank you for that. There's another area that's going to have another landslide that hopefully is coming up soon, but yeah, thank you for coming out here and helping us understand that.
And any time that I can come and answer any other questions, I'm glad to do it.
Thanks for clarifying that with us. Thank you.
So we meet every other Tuesday if you'd like to come.
Or do we have his number for our Hamilton County
I
complaints?
appreciate
Our street
you coming out,
complaints?
but I think we're going to entertain these 2 items right now because we did amend the agenda.
So at this point, I think unless you all want us to reintroduce the items, we'd be looking for a motion from you all on a resolution to either accept or deny the road.
I for one don't feel it's necessary to reintroduce. I think we know what we're talking about. Am I right? I guess.
So do you want a motion?
Yeah, so I'll motion to,
Resolution?
resolution to approve acceptance of Dunlap, Mel Carl, and Grovewood Drive as township roads.
And I will second it.
Are you,
And my discussion would be, Eric, thank you for hearing us out, and hopefully you'll drive out yourself and look at that road a year from now and go, wow, I see the problem, and hopefully there's no problems. Hopefully it's good, but to tell us that there's a redevelopment of the subdivision regulations, that's great. That's kind of where we want to go, and I'm sure it's not just us alone. It's probably every little municipality. And how many little headaches do you have? 44 of them in the county? So we're not your biggest one,
Yeah.
I'm sure. Matter, Kathy?
No, and Tiffany, can we just put this on a side note, before this 1 year ends, that we go out and look
Well,
at
they
this
do.
road? Make sure.
Yeah, the county will have their engineer go out, and they'll actually have our team
Okay.
be there.
I just want to make sure we now know.
I don't have any other
I don't have
comments.
anything.
No, I don't either.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Are we going to go to item B then?
And then I think the next item was tabled. Matt, you had some
Yeah,
specific
I still haven't
questions.
spoken to Mr. Long about it, but we traded messages. My schedule and his schedule seem to be the same. But I am going to motion to direct you to sign the 2024 Stormwater District Level Service, Estimated Service Fee Form. And once I actually, as I said, the township, I took over.
Can I motion?
Yeah, I motioned.
I'll second, then we'll open to discussion.
Sorry.
No problem.
I took Andrew Pappas' part on that, and I just haven't been official. I don't know what's taken so long. But at that point, I think we'll work from the inside to get them to expand their offerings. It doesn't matter if we vote yes or no on this, because we're going to get charged anyway. And, you know, hopefully as a future member of the board, of that board, that I can work to get them more grant money throwing out. And I know that they work with you guys an awful lot, too.
I'm a member of that board as well.
That's right, yeah.
I'll make sure Todd gets in touch.
Yeah, we just bounce it together. I've taught all his kids at Elder, so, yeah.
My comment would be what I just said earlier. I saw the project out on East Miami River Road. It's a little bit upstream of another big problem that's in the area where it was recently resurfaced. But I see where the county's spending almost $2.4 million on that road, which is in Colerain Township. That's not directly tied to this, but it is a issue with stormwater causing it's not stormwater, it's river water at this point. But all water flows downhill, and that's the engineer's #1 rule is water's flowed downhill since the fourth day of creation. So, I mean, it's always been there, and so I do appreciate that you in thinking about our township, and I know there's a resurfacing on Sheed and Hanley Road, and you know, we're out here too, and that's part of our great relationship that we have, that you come here and hear what we have to say, and thank you for getting those projects going. If you go up Hanley Road, it is probably one of the worst roads in the county right now, so I'm glad that's.
Get lots of complaints about Sheed and Hadley,
I'm
yes.
glad. We always dump them off on you. We say,
Yep.
call Eric Beck, that's his road, it's not ours. But no, so I'm glad that you're doing that big project out on East Miami River Road.
I do have one additional question for you, but let's vote on this because it's not germane to this, if you don't mind 30 more seconds.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes. Mr. Weckback and I have talked about this. Are the feds still trying to devolve? Is that an engineer's thing, or is it the stormwater with the?
That's a stormwater thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll take it up with them and you.
That's fine. Will you be available tomorrow? Todd and I can get with you tomorrow.
We have one more week of classes.
Okay.
So.
We'll get with you next week then.
Okay, sounds great.
You're talking about the Mill Creek, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the feds giving it back to us to.
And you're welcome to stick around, but I didn't want to have you sit there all night. I know you've got.
Thank you.
And anytime you have another pickup truck floating around that you're ready to cycle out, we really appreciate it. It's made a huge impact on our litter program.
I'm glad you could put it to use.
Yeah, and
Oh,
we're-
good.
and
Yeah.
it really has. We've done wonders with our litter pickup crew. It was an experimental program when we started, and you jumped in and helped us, and I as I've told you in the past, I really appreciate that, so thanks.
Yeah, thank you for coming up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Tiffany. Now you get to come up.
Hello again. Okay, under Public Services, item A is a motion to approve change order for Tri-State Concrete for the US 27 Colerain Avenue Bus Stop Project in the amount of $23,200. This information can be found on page 55 in your agenda packet. Construction began a few months ago, and the construction crews ran into some issues with excavating the area to install the retaining wall. They had to do some field engineering, which basically amounted to prefabricating some items over the drainage pipe to be able to rest the retaining wall on top of it so as not to crush the pipe. So this is what that item is. Staff recommendation is approval of the motion.
I motion that we approve the change order with Tri-State Concrete for the Colerain Avenue Bus Stop project in the amount of $23,200.
I'll second that.
Discussion?
I had asked Mr. Wackbach about that, and a big part of that is a grant from the transit levy where they were going to take 25% of the levy proceeds, which when that came up 2 years ago, I didn't support it, but previous trustee Rajagopal went after that, and here we are 2 years later still discussing getting those bus stops put in. And that said, if you've ever sat on Colerain Avenue behind a bus, it will make a big improvement on traffic flow, which is important, but that money is out of that grant, so that's not out of our general fund. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. No other comments?
Any discussion?
None.
None.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board. The next two items tonight are from the Development Department and will be presented by Director David Miller.
Need your vaporizer.
Good evening again. Our first item, be item 6A, is it's under the development. So this is item 10A under development for the pub. It's related to the public hearing that we had earlier tonight, and so the discussion was over whether to rezone a portion of their property from R6 to B2 to help facilitate the construction of a new maintenance facility for the Kenwood Dealer Group. So before you are two separate resolutions, one to approve the rezoning, another to deny, and the recommendation would be to approve.
Do you, go ahead.
I'll motion to approve zoning commission case ZA 202303, rezoning a portion of 8940 Colerain Avenue from R6 to B2.
I'll second. And discussion is, did you want to submit those plans since they weren't downloaded? Should we scan them, have date?
I have provided a copy to
Okay,
those.
okay, still wanna
of
double-
those resolutions to the
Okay, you go.
fiscal officer.
Okay, sure.
So Cliff's Notes version is this is going to reduce asphalt and put in more green in that property, right?
Actually, what it does is it
Adds
takes-
green to offset the asphalt.
Yeah.
It adds
Okay.
green space to the entire B2 parcel.
Gotcha.
So that there is a smaller percentage of impervious surface.
Do you have a picture so I can show that? Do you have that?
No, I have that.
Oh, you
Yeah.
have, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
And what, for those that don't understand, a hard surface sheets off rainwater, and a certain percentage of a property has to be able to absorb that rainwater. That particular lot needs to have, and I think, was it a combination of parcels to make this work?
Well,
Or you're splitting the one parcel in half.
there
You're only
is a-
rezoning part of it.
We're taking the R6 that is unusable, it's green space, it's a ravine, it's just covered in trees, and we're just taking a portion of that and moving it into the B2 and attaching it into that new parcel with the business portion and leaving that other green space. Again, there's nothing that's happening to any of the green space other than on paper it's being rezoned so that the business portion has a
So that it
percentage
works.
now of green.
The correct
that-
percentage.
Correct.
And then I know the builder is sitting out there, and by doing this, that'll enable them to add on to the facility?
That is correct. And one other note, there was a smaller parcel on the front side of the business that abuts Colerain Avenue, and that's being consolidated into that as well. But that was very minor.
No other comments from me.
None.
None.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
The other item is just a motion to set a public hearing for sidewalk maintenance program for 30 days out, the first meeting in June. That'd be June 13th, 2023 at 7 p.m.
I motion that we set a public hearing for the sidewalk maintenance program for June 13th, 2023 at 7 p.m.
I'll second that. Oh, sorry, I
Oh, I
didn't.
thought you were typing. No discussion.
No discussion.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. So the next items are in the Administration Department. The first item I will take, which is a motion authorizing the Township Administrator to execute an agreement with Teasdale Fentons for basement repairs. That price is still to be determined. They offered us a price quote of $34,000 for these repairs. March was quite a fun month for us. We had 2 floods in the basement when we had those really heavy rainfalls. Both happened to be on Fridays at about 4 o'clock, so led to some fun for our staff as we tried to navigate that and get the situation and issues addressed. Given the fact that this flash flooding, this isn't the first time this has happened, is the first time in a while, we're actually recommending that Teasdale does not install carpet as a replacement, but rather that they take the existing concrete flooring, polish it up, and potentially paint it to make it look nice. Doing that, I think, will be more cost effective in the long run and should cost approximately the same amount as the quote that they provided. However, again, they're just providing a quote. They don't know the exact cost until they actually get in there.
Does that quote cover with a sub pump or any interior
It
draining?
does not do anything for the sump
It's
pump.
just the total.
Correct. That is just to completely replace all of the area that was, I guess, remedied. So all the carpet that was removed, all of the baseboards that were removed, portions of the drywall that had to be removed. There was an area that was found to have some mold that had to be removed. So there's quite a bit of work that they're going to have to do to get this back up to the level it was at beforehand.
So what is being done to remediation for the water?
So so Teasdale did everything they could to address the initial water concerns. We had our facility maintenance person as well as SWS come out to inspect the pipe and to inspect our electrical system and to inspect our sump pump. Best that they can tell from all of that work is that the just quickness and heaviness of the rainfall is what caused the issues, that it was more than our pump could handle at the time. We've been talking about solutions there, but they are probably going to be a little more costly and something that we're going to need to look at for part of a capital budget purchase.
Okay. Do we have a backup battery for that sub pump?
I think, do we have a backup battery for that sump pump? That's what the question was. Okay. So, no, we do not.
Okay.
So I would recommend adoption of the motion.
Excuse me. I motion that we authorize the Township Administrator to execute an agreement with Teasdale Fenton for basement repairs. The price estimate, and it's only an estimate, was for about $34,000.
That is correct.
And if there's a second.
I'll second.
Discussion.
And we talked earlier at our previous meeting about, moving some of the police and fire down there, and hopefully these repairs will be, consistent with a plan to move some folks down there.
Yes, sir.
We could put the rescue boat down there.
I don't think we're going to get enough standing water for that.
Better not.
All right.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. Next item will be presented by Assistant Administrator Mays.
Hello again.
Hello.
Okay. So the item B is a motion authorizing the Township Administrator to execute a contract with Arcoro for human resources management software. This information can be found on page 175 of your packet. Arcoro is the Township's management software that is utilized by the Human Resources Department. The software streamlines the hiring, onboarding, and employee training processes, along with other functional processes for human resources management. This contract has historically been renewed on an annual basis. However, the Arcoro representative is offering the Township a 3-year contract that will guarantee price lock at $7,867 per year. This price lock will save the township approximately $2,358 per year over the 3-year period. And in comparison, in 2022, the township spent $11,015 for the services. So quite a bit of a savings there. So staff recommendation is approval of the motion.
I motion that we authorize the township administrator to execute a contract with Arcoro for human resources management software.
I'll second.
Go ahead.
I thought you were writing, sorry.
Yeah.
Any discussion?
No.
Thanks for finding the savings.
That's what I like to do.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. The final item tonight is a resolution authorizing the transfer of township monies. At the last trustee meeting, we adopted a resolution to increase appropriations in the bond retirement fund for the debt service related to Station 26 and 102. This would allow us to move that same amount from the capital project fund to the bond retirement fund in order to complete the preparations for the payment. And I would recommend adoption of the resolution.
I motion we approve the resolution authorizing the transfer of township monies as described by Mr. Weckbach.
I'll second.
Discussion?
None.
I have none. Do you have any
No.
discussion? Okay.
I'm just scared because Mr. Solomon came over here and I don't know what's going on.
He's got a pen out. He's
Yeah.
signing something.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. That is the last item of new business, and we've handled old business. So after that is consent items, and there were 3. There's a new hire in the police department, and that is a police officer, Michael Varon, at $33.65 per hour. New hire in the police department, a Noe Erickson Broti at $33.65 per hour, and a contract that I signed with Dynegy, which locks in the township into an electric aggregation rate for township buildings. And I would recommend approval of the consent items.
I motion that we approve consent items A, B, and C as described.
I'll second.
Discussions?
And what was the rate on the item C?
It's 6,527 per kilowatt hour.
0.06,
0.06.
Still better than Duke.
which is way less than Duke's going to go up to in June.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So it's been.
I'm good.
No other discussion.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you, Board.
Okay, fiscal officer report.
Thank you, Board. First, March has been reconciliated and posted on the website with a adjusted bank balance of $61,850,612.23. We have completed we've received 317 public records requests. And how we got to that total is for the longest time, we've been counting a public records request as an HR number. And on average, each HR number has 2.5-ish public records. So it's 127 HR numbers, 317 public records. And we have 5 outstanding still that need to be completed. So and that's all I have.
Thank you.
I'm going to motion to, what, do we need an executive session?
Yeah.
I think we do,
So,
for legal issues.
okay. So if we wanted to go into an executive session for legal issues, that would be a motion in accordance with Ohio Revised Code 121.22G3 to discuss pending or imminent litigation with the township attorney.
And I motion we go into executive session for that reason.
I'll second.
I don't anticipate it would take too long, and I don't believe there'd be any action when we came back.
No, I don't think so.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
So it's 9:16. We are going to go into executive session, probably you said about half hour, 45 minutes tops?
I hope not.
Okay, okay.
But there should be no action when we come back except to adjourn.
Okay. Okay, it's 10:02. We just came back from executive session. Is there anything to report?
Nothing to report.
Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
I motion that we adjourn the meeting at 10:02 PM.
I second.
No discussion?
No discussion?
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Meeting adjourned at 10:02.